As night gently settles and the final movements of a long day begin to dissolve into stillness, the modern mind grows loud once more. Thoughts that have yet to find their names, worries that have not found their way out, the quiet questions about the meaning of life we keep trying to avoid. All of them gather like a thin veil of mist that refuses to lift. But tonight, you no longer need to resist them. Let me guide you into a slower, deeper journey. A place where the subtle shadows of psychology are told in a soft, warm voice, like a stream of water flowing through the deepest chambers of the soul. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And in the next 3 hours, we will gently open that door together, stepping into a world of psychological tricks so distorted they might change the way you think, yet told in a rhythm so calm, so tender, that it will ease you into a deep and restful sleep. So loosen your shoulders, slow your breath by just a beat, and let this night begin like a quiet meeting between you and the silent darkness within. When night falls and the outer world slowly sinks into the soft silence of darkness, another space within us begins to awaken. A space of quiet reflections, of questions we never find the time to confront during the day, of lingering uncertainties about the nature of who we are. Modern life surrounds us with countless forms of noise, work, messages, expectations, invisible pressures, and the vague haze of the future. These things gather like a thin mist around the mind, leaving us exhausted even when the body is still in motion. And in these moments of weariness, a longing begins to rise, a longing for something to lean on, a place to return to, not a physical space, but a moment of stillness where we are allowed to loosen our grip and gently look back at ourselves. The journey into philosophical paradoxes was born from that longing. An invitation into a world where every question is welcomed, where uncertainty is not a weakness, but a doorway to deeper self-understanding. Philosophy has never been the distant, abstract thing people often assume it to be. Rather, it is the art of listening to oneself, the courage to sit with questions that seem simple yet resist easy answers. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "If you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." It is not a warning against thinking too deeply, but a reminder that when we look into the darkness of our own minds, the darkness reflects back truths we never knew were there. Tonight's journey begins from that very place, the moment you allow yourself to slow down, to inhale deeply and exhale as if releasing a portion of the day's chaos that has clung to you for far too long. In that quiet rhythm of breath, philosophy becomes softer. It becomes like a companion sitting beside you in the dark, not rushing to give you answers, but gently asking, what is truly happening inside you? And when you respond with silence, philosophy opens new doors so you may see more of yourself. Philosophical paradoxes, strangely enough, are among the gentlest ways to enter the inner world. A paradox is where logic meets its limit, where the known touches the unknown, where the edges of perception slow us down and invite us to breathe more softly. They guide us into places where language cannot fully reach. They do not ask you to believe in anything, nor demand that you choose between right and wrong. They merely invite you to step into a stream of thought, flowing lightly like night wind through the trees. When Søren Kierkegaard wrote in Fear and Trembling that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards, he was not speaking only of time, but of the contradiction woven into the way we experience our lives. We live in the present, yet understand ourselves through the past. We reach toward the future, yet are pulled back by memory. paradox becomes the mirror that reveals these truths with gentleness, without judgment. In this journey, you will walk through stories that have existed for thousands of years, from the ship of Theseus to the questions of free will, of personal identity, of truth and illusion, of causality, and of whether we ever truly control anything in our lives. Each paradox is like a wave, sometimes shallow, sometimes deep, sometimes touching the shore, sometimes drawing back into the quiet. It carries pieces of thought you may have forgotten for years, and in that flow, your mind begins to soften, as if being placed into warm water where nothing demands to be solved immediately. The strange beauty is that when we slow down long enough, questions become easier to breathe with. They stop being burdens and become doorways, offering moments to re-see what has always been familiar, yet never fully understood. Philosophy is not meant to explain everything. It is meant to help us feel more deeply the experience of being alive. Tonight, let each paradox be like a single candle placed in a dark room. It does not banish all shadows, but it gives you enough light to find your way, enough light to notice the hidden corners of your mind, the emotions you never named, the quiet beliefs that guide you from beneath the surface. Enough light to see yourself more clearly, more gently, more truthfully. And as you drift with this quiet current long enough, you will realize that the journey into philosophical paradoxes is not a search for answers, but a search for stillness. Not an empty stillness, but one that touches the essence of existence itself. Tonight, as your final thoughts before sleep begin to slow, you will find yourself standing before the doorway of what comes next, the stories waiting in the distance, softly calling you toward the paradox of identity, toward the ship of Theseus, toward the shadows of free will and the quiet echo of causality. But do not rush toward that doorway just yet. Let part one end in the very moment you are living, the moment where everything feels lighter. The only sound you hear is the gentle fading of your own thoughts melting into the night. For the moment you are ready, the journey will open again at part two, where the question, what makes us who we are, begins to rise, softly, steadily, guiding you deeper into the labyrinth of identity and existence. And there, the night will become even more tender, as the final echoes of part one linger within you like a thin mist resting over a still lake, as the quiet reflections on the borders of knowledge continue to hum softly in your slowing breath, the door to part two opens, without a sound, without interruption, as naturally as a gentle shift in the mind's own rhythm. It is like sitting before a candle when its flame leans ever so slightly to one side, inviting you to look deeper into the shadow cast behind it. And in that delicate moment, we step into the story of the ship of Theseus, one of the most classical, yet profoundly subtle paradoxes philosophy has gifted to humanity. An endless question about identity and the continuity of existence. Imagine a great ship anchored out at sea. It has carried sailors for many years, journeying through countless voyages, enduring roaring storms, moonless nights, and radiant dawns. But time, which preserves nothing unchanged, begins to wear down each wooden plank. Rotten boards are replaced, rusted nails exchanged for new ones, then the rudder, then the deck, until one day, every part of the original ship has been replaced. The ship still bears its old name. It still sails familiar waters. And yet, a quiet question begins to rise. Is it still the original ship of Theseus? Or has it become something entirely new? The puzzle deepens when someone gathers all the discarded planks and builds another ship, calling it Theseus as well. Now there are two ships, each with its own claim to being the original. Which one then is truly Theseus, and what exactly allows an object or a person to remain itself when everything within it has changed. This may seem like an intellectual exercise, yet it opens into a vast doorway that leads directly to the nature of identity we carry each day. When we gaze upon that ship, we see not only the old and new planks, we begin to see ourselves reflected in it, a being in constant motion, constantly becoming, constantly shifting into new versions while still insisting, "I am still me." But is that truly so? When Heraclitus wrote in fragments, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man," he was speaking not only of rivers and people, but of the restless movement at the heart of existence. Nothing remains still long enough to be called whole, and neither do we. We change every day, in cells, in thoughts, in feelings. Our bodies renew themselves. Many scientists say that nearly all cells are replaced after a few years. Our memories, too, are not faithful recordings. They shift, reshape, fade, and sometimes recreate themselves without our awareness. And yet, despite all these changes, we use a single word, I, to refer to something we believe remains continuous. We say, "I once dreamed of this. I'm the kind of person who..." I grew up there, as if the self of today still carries the exact imprint of the self from years ago. But if memory shifts, if cells renew, if personality evolves, does the self remain untouched? Or is it, too, like the ship of Theseus, simply the continuation of a story we have grown accustomed to naming? This question is not meant to unsettle you, but to help you see more deeply into the way you exist. For the most frightening thing is not change. It is being unaware of the change within us. In the soft hush of night, when all outside sounds fade and only your own heartbeat remains, the question becomes surprisingly gentle. It does not demand an answer. It simply whispers that perhaps identity is not a fixed point, but a flowing stream, a stream like breath itself, expanding, contracting, transforming. The philosopher John Locke laid the foundation for another view, suggesting that personal identity is formed through memory. He believed that a person remains the same individual if they remember their past experiences. But tonight's philosophy does not insist on agreement. It merely invites you to look at your memories with tenderness. For memories, too, are like the planks on a ship, replaceable, alterable, worn by time. There are things you once believed were true, and now you are no longer certain. There are things you thought forgotten, yet a scent or a melody can bring them rushing back. If memory is always shifting, which memory holds the original the way a ship might cling to an old plank? At a deeper level, the Theseus paradox touches the story of our lives. The way we cling to a particular version of ourselves, even when everything inside us has changed. We cling to a name, to habits, to old beliefs, as reassurance, the way the ship keeps its name so sailors may feel at ease. But sometimes that clinging exhausts us, keeping us from becoming what life is quietly inviting us to be. Perhaps identity is not held in material or memory, but in continuation, in the seamless flow of awareness, in the journey that accepts transformation while still sensing a thread of coherence running through experience. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." That sentence feels like a whisper from the dark. Identity is not the old pieces that constructed us, but the direction toward which we are unfolding. When understood this way, the ship of Theseus ceases to be a logical puzzle. It becomes a mirror glimmering with life. It reminds us that change does not erase identity. Change is identity. We are a journey, not a destination. We are movement, not stillness. And now, as part 2 closes like a gentle breeze passing over your shoulder, allow yourself to feel that continuity. The rhythm of the story has not stopped. It is quietly preparing to open into part 3, where the next question becomes even more intimate. If body and memory change each day, what remains in us that still resembles who we were yesterday? Let yourself drift deeper into this quiet, like a ship gliding through the night's soft mist. Slow, warm, unhurried, and free from the need to know where it leads. For the next chapter of the journey is already waiting, softly, just ahead, as the resonance of part 2 drifts slowly across your mind like a gentle wave withdrawing from the shoreline, leaving delicate ripples trembling on the surface of your thoughts. You may begin to sense that the question of identity does not end with the ship of Theseus. It guides you, softly yet persistently, toward another landscape of reflection, one more intimate, quieter, and deeper. The landscape of your own body, of the self you often believe to be unchanging. As if, when the story of the ship at sea fades, another story, the story of the vessel called human, begins to reveal itself in the tender darkness of the night, asking whether you are truly a single, intact entity, or whether that belief is simply a comforting illusion. And in this seamless continuation, part 3 opens like the next unhurried breath. Human beings, like the ship of Theseus, are structures in perpetual motion. But this motion does not lie merely in changing wooden planks. It lies within your very flesh, your cells, your skin, your bones, your thoughts. Your body is not a still object. It is a quiet current carrying countless versions of you, letting them drift away like leaves on a slow-moving river. Biology tells us that most of the cells in your body are continually renewed. Skin cells shift within weeks. Intestinal cells renew in days. Blood cells transform within months. Even bones, seemingly solid and immutable, are entirely regenerated after a few years, which means the body you inhabit now is not the body you had 5 or 10 years ago. Every tiny piece that formed you then has changed. Yet each morning you rise and say, you look in the mirror and recognize someone. So what makes you believe you're still yourself? Does the I truly exist as something fixed, or is it merely a name we place upon a ceaseless flow of matter and memory? Heraclitus expressed something philosophy has repeated for thousands of years. All is flux, nothing stays still. And strangely, even knowing this, we still experience ourselves as whole. Perhaps it is because our identity seems tied not only to the body, but also to memory. Yet when we look deeper into memory, we encounter another paradox. Memory is not as stable as we imagine. Human memory is not a stored film strip waiting in an archive. It is a process of reconstruction, constantly reshaped by emotion, time, and perspective. Each time you remember something, you rewrite it. Your memories resemble the old planks on Theseus's ship. Some vanish, some are replaced, some are patched together from fragments of other moments in your life. So if your body changes and your memories change, what remains for you to call me? Perhaps the only thing that truly persists is the sense of continuity in experience. As philosopher Derek Parfit suggested in Reasons and Persons, personal identity is not a fixed entity, but a continuous chain of moments, emotions, and awareness. You are not a point frozen in time. You are a curve, bending gently, changing shape, never broken. Carl Jung echoed a similar truth in the archetypes and the collective unconscious. The self is not only the center, but also the whole circumference which encloses conscious and unconscious. It is the center of this totality, just as the ego is the center of consciousness. The self ceases to be a fixed nucleus and becomes instead a space large enough to contain both light and shadow, both what you know and what you cannot yet recognize within yourself. When you look at the body, you see material changing. When you look at memory, you see story changing. But when you look at experience, the simple sense of, I am here, I am listening, I am feeling, you encounter a soft continuity that defies explanation. Perhaps that continuity is the answer. As long as you feel yourself experiencing, the river is still yours, even if every droplet has changed. So does the I exist as something permanent? Perhaps not. But does the I exist as a flowing current of lived experience? Perhaps yes. And that is the beauty of the Theseus paradox when it turns toward the human being. We are both ourselves and not ourselves, similar to yesterday, yet entirely new. This does not erase identity. It animates it. It does not deprive us of stability. It gives us freedom. Freedom to become. Freedom to change. Freedom to let go of the decayed parts of ourselves like old wooden planks and to welcome the emerging parts forming quietly within us. And so, in the hush of night, you may allow yourself to exhale and realize that you do not have to cling to any fixed version of who you are. You may shift, you may tire, you may renew, you may drift, you may return, and all of it is still you. For identity is not perfection, it is continuation. As you listen to this story in the dim glow of the night, you may feel something loosening within you, as if the pressure to be someone in the modern world is melting away. You do not need to resemble who you were yesterday, nor must you become who you once imagined. You only need to continue, to exist, to flow along this quiet current. And as part 3 comes to a gentle close, your thoughts begin to tilt softly toward a new question. If identity is a flow, if body and memory are perpetually replaced planks, then what happens when we fall asleep, when consciousness disappears for hours? Does the self remain continuous? Are we still us when we awaken? These questions, delicate as a night mist, will guide you toward part 4, where the idea of the mind rebooting itself begins to whisper from within the darkness. Let your mind drift onward, slowly, for this journey is long, soft, and full of quiet wonder. As the reflections on personal identity from part 3 continue to ripple across the surface of your mind, like gentle waves left behind by a stone dropped into a quiet lake, you may begin to notice another branch of thought drifting softly out of that very current. It arrives not with sound, but with silence. The silence that stretches between the moment you close your eyes and the moment you open them again. A gap we treat as ordinary, yet one that may hold one of existence's deepest mysteries. Sleep. And that is where part 4 begins. Imagine slowly that each night as you sink into deep sleep, your consciousness disappears entirely. No inner voice, no thoughts, no sense of I. A vast, borderless quiet in which you no longer know who you are, where you are, or for what purpose you exist. Then morning comes. Light touches your eyelids. You awaken. But is the you who wakes truly the same you who fell asleep the night before? Or is it a perfect copy, with the same memories, the same emotions, the same sense of self, yet a new version altogether? It sounds like science fiction, yet it is a philosophical hypothesis that has unsettled many minds. Between the moment you lose awareness and the moment you regain it, there is a break, a discontinuity. And the unsettling truth is this: no one can prove that the self before sleep continues unbroken into the self after waking. If consciousness is interrupted, is identity interrupted too? Or are you each morning simply taking over a body with memories freshly loaded, like a computer rebooting after being powered off? Philosopher Derek Parfit, in Reasons and Persons, suggested that personal identity is not absolute continuity, but merely the persistence of information. Meaning, as long as memories, feelings, and thoughts continue, we believe ourselves to be the same person. But what if these are only data reloaded after every sleep cycle? Here, sleep becomes a paradox. We treat sleep as restoration, as rest. Yet in philosophical space, sleep is the moment we cease to exist. We lose all awareness of ourselves, all track of time. A third of our life is spent in a state of non-being. And each time we return, we believe we never left. There is something fragile here, something quiet, something that makes a person feel small in the face of consciousness itself. But instead of fear, try looking at it from the stillness of night, as someone listening deeply to the sound of their own mind unfolding. If every morning you are a new version, it does not make you any less real or less original. It simply means you are fluid, like a wave born the moment the previous wave dissolves, while the sea remains, vast, continuous, ever-changing. Nietzsche once wrote in The Gay Science, "For a brief moment, we are truly ourselves only in the moment of awakening." That idea opens an unexpected window, perhaps the instant of waking, when you have not yet recalled everything, not yet returned to your daily roles, is the moment you are closest to an original self, if such a thing exists. But only seconds later, memories rush back like waters returning to a riverbed. Personality reinstates itself, thoughts fill the space, and you seamlessly become your familiar version. Like a program rebooting, reloading its interface, continuing its functions as if it never paused. What unsettles us is the possibility that consciousness is not a continuous stream, but a mosaic of moments stitched together, each night, each sleep, each lapse in awareness becoming a quiet reset. And yet, from this idea, a strange peace emerges. For if identity is not fixed but recreated each day, then we are not shackled to the versions of ourselves we once were. We are given the freedom to awaken as something new, lighter, wider, unburdened by what has passed. Sleep, in this sense, is a doorway of cleansing. It brings us to the brink of vanishing and returns us with the chance to continue. Some philosophers suggest that the transition from wakefulness into unconsciousness is a kind of temporary death, not in a fearful way, but as an act of complete release. And when we awaken, we experience a small rebirth. Seen from this angle, life does not contain a single beginning and a single end, but countless small beginnings. Every morning is an invitation to live again, to start again, to rediscover a slightly renewed version of ourselves. An anonymous philosopher once wrote, "We die every night, and we are born every morning." If each dawn is a rebirth, then the belief that we are the same person is merely a psychological habit. Consciousness needs continuity. Without it, it would collapse. So we tell ourselves a story. The me of yesterday is the me of today. Yet at a deeper level, that me is like a flame. The flame of last night and the flame of this morning may appear identical, may give off the same warmth, but they are never the same flame. They are the process of burning, continuous, renewing, never repeating. Accept this, and the fear of losing your original self dissolves. For identity was never an object to be preserved. It was always a movement to be experienced. The reboot hypothesis of sleep does not frighten us. It reminds us of the delicate beauty of consciousness, that we do not need to hold ourselves too tightly, that we can allow change, that we can soften, dissolve, and regather the next morning as something gentler, clearer, more attuned to ourselves. And as Part 4 quietly closes like a wooden door settling in the night, another question begins to stir. If consciousness can break so easily, if the self can vanish and then reappear, well, what does this mean for free will? If each waking version is just a new iteration of the one before, do the choices we make truly belong to us? That question, soft yet sharp, leads you into Part 5, where we step into the twilight realm of freedom, destiny, and the choices we believe are our own. And the night deepens just a little more, as the final whisper of Part 4 lingers within you like a thin veil of mist resting gently over the mind, carrying with it that strange awareness that each morning you might simply be a rebooted version of yourself, inheriting memories like a restored file and believing you are continuous. It is from that very fragility that a deeper question begins to rise, a question philosophy, psychology, neuroscience, and humanity have pursued for thousands of years. If the self can break, if each day you awaken as a new flame shaped in the image of the one before it, then are the choices you make truly yours, or are they merely sequences of reactions quietly programmed within the hidden layers of the brain? From that subtle shift, Part 5 opens, as though consciousness itself is gently pulling back a curtain that has always been there but seldom acknowledged. We grow up believing in free will, and that belief becomes the foundation of morality, law, responsibility, and the pride we take in shaping our futures. When we choose a path, choose whom to love, choose to stop or to continue, we believe the author of that choice is me. But neuroscience has begun telling a different story, one both unnerving and profoundly illuminating. The brain may decide before the mind knows it has decided. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment asking participants to move a finger whenever they wished, recording the moment they felt they made the decision, and the startling result was that the brain began preparing the movement hundreds of milliseconds, sometimes half a second, before the person became aware of choosing, meaning the brain chooses first and consciousness notices second. And the self we imagine as commander may instead be a narrator, receiving updates after the system has already acted, as if a silent programmer within us generates actions and then hands them to the conscious self, so it can believe it authored them. Sitting with this idea in the quiet of night can send a soft shiver through you, not from fear, but from the realization that it shifts the way we see ourselves. If the brain acts first, then what exactly is I in control of? And if awareness arrives after the decision, how free are we really? Here, philosophy becomes a candlelit guide. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote in The World as will and representation. A man can do what he wants, but he cannot will what he wants, a line that echoes like a distant bell. We can act on what we desire, but we cannot choose the desires themselves, for they emerge from memories we did not pick, environments we did not choose, genes we inherited, and experiences beyond our control. Desire is not an act of will, but a consequence, and if desire itself is a consequence, where does freedom begin? Marcus Aurelius in Meditations wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, but through the lens of modern neuroscience, those outside events begin to include the unconscious processes inside the brain. Reflexes, emotional imprints, behavioral patterns we do not see. And if those deeper layers are beyond our control, can the conscious layer truly be free? This is not a denial of free will, but an invitation to understand its subtlety. Consciousness may not initiate decisions, but it can observe, redirect, and reshape them, like someone rowing a small boat who cannot command the river's current but can choose how to guide the oar, revealing a softer truth that we are neither puppets nor absolute rulers, but the meeting point of biology, memory, emotion, and culture. And within that meeting point exists pockets of freedom that are small but profoundly meaningful. Yet these pockets are not infinite. Emotions, for example, arise before we can label them. Anger erupts chemically before we identify it. Love blooms hormonally before we name it. Intuition emerges from neural networks before we articulate it. How delicate this seems, and yet how beautiful, because it shows that freedom is not the heroic task of overpowering nature, but the gentle work of understanding it. Nietzsche in Thus Spoke Zarathustra asks, "The greatest weight, what if a demon crept after you one night?" Describing a vision of eternal recurrence, and beneath that image lies the idea that if life is shaped by countless forces we did not choose, then freedom is found not in controlling everything, but in courageously responding to what is. Through the soft lens of night, free will becomes less a sharp blade and more a subtle awareness. Consciousness may not choose the first impulse, but it can learn from patterns, break cycles, alter future behavior, and open new paths even when the old ones seem predetermined. If we believe in absolute free will, we blame ourselves harshly, thinking every mistake is entirely our doing. But if we recognize that countless decisions arise from unseen neural roots, we grow gentler with ourselves. We become like a tree, not choosing its seed, soil, or season, yet still leaning toward the light. Freedom becomes softness rather than struggle, the simple act of breathing deeply and saying, "From here, I choose differently," even if the past has carved deep grooves within us. And as part 5 closes, you may feel yourself sinking deeper into the night, where questions no longer provoke fear but offer a quiet comfort. And from within that comfort, another question begins to surface. If free will is so delicate, if choices are shaped before awareness, then what makes us feel continuous, unified, like a single eye moving through time? That question draws you toward part 6, where we shift our gaze to the universe itself as an endless chain of dominoes and wonder whether everything was set in motion from the first spark of existence. But not yet. For now, remain here a moment longer, letting the night rest a gentle hand upon your shoulder as if whispering, "No need to hurry." This journey is long, and the path is soft. As the reflections of part 5 settle over you like a thin mist draped across the quiet pulses of consciousness, as the question of free will and pre-written decisions lingers softly somewhere between the darkness around you and the gentle rhythm of your breath, another contemplation begins to open, delicate as an invisible doorway, leading your mind toward much wider depths. If the choices you believe you freely make are actually determined by your brain, milliseconds before you know you've chosen, then what determines those choices? And if the unconscious networks within you shape your desires, habits, and reactions, then what shaped those networks in the first place? That question, subtle yet piercing, guides you into part 6, where the entire universe begins to appear like a silent chain of falling dominoes, starting from the Big Bang and extending all the way to this very moment, the moment you are listening to these slow midnight words. Determinism is one of those ideas that leaves the mind both humbled and stunned. It proposes that every motion, every thought, every choice, every heartbeat, and every flicker of your neural activity is the inevitable consequence of a chain of causes stretching back to the dawn of the cosmos. From a singular point, all energy and matter burst outward, forming stars, forming planets, forming life, and eventually forming you, sitting in the dark, listening to a warm, slow voice, wondering whether you are free. If the first particles had fallen in a slightly different direction, if an electron had vibrated a little slower, if a star had collapsed a few million years earlier, then the entire history of humanity would be different. Your very existence might not have happened at all. So is everything you do now, lifting a finger, taking a breath, sending a message, loving someone, already encoded in that first cosmic moment. Determinism doesn't force you to believe, but it invites you to see life under a new light. Imagine your entire life as a row of falling dominoes. You can see the ones close to you, your memories, your emotions, your choices, but not the millions ahead or the billions behind. And yet all of them remain connected, touching one another in a motion too intricate for any single person to control. David Hume once wrote in an inquiry concerning human understanding, "'Tis impossible to admit of any medium betwixt chance and necessity. Either all things are necessary or all things are random. There is no gray space in between." And because absolute chaos is something the human mind cannot endure, we are left with the possibility that everything must have a cause, following cause, from the Big Bang to right now. One of the most unsettling examples is this. You are hearing these words not because you chose to, but because every event in your life led you precisely to this moment. The environment you were born into, the people you met, the devices you used, the lonely days, the restless nights, the yearning for peace. All of it a cascading series of dominoes falling quietly until they brought you here. But if everything is predetermined, where does freedom live? This is what makes determinism such a beautiful terrain of thought. Not because it provides the answer, but because it makes the question worth sitting beside for a very long time. Friedrich Nietzsche once said in Twilight of the Idols, "I am a destiny." Not as a boast, but as a calm acceptance that one's life is shaped by countless forces from long before one was born. And rather than crush the spirit, this acceptance can become a form of tenderness. If everything is inevitable, then the mistakes you once tormented yourself for, the choices you once blamed yourself for, the losses you once held as your fault, perhaps none of them were freely chosen at all, but were pushed into motion by millions of events preceding you. This idea, when approached gently, becomes a kind of healing, a reminder that you can release yourself from the burden of absolute control. Yet in the quiet of the night, another question rises softly like breath. If everything is determined, then is love real? Is sadness real? Is joy real? Does choosing forgiveness or walking away from pain still matter? Here is where determinism and human experience meet like two streams merging into one. Because regardless of whether everything is determined, you still feel these things. You still hurt when you lose someone, you still warm when someone loves you, you still feel peace when you hear a calm voice in the night. And none of that becomes less meaningful just because it might have been set in motion long ago. Baruch Spinoza wrote in Ethics, "All things are determined by the necessity of the divine nature," and he did not see this as imprisonment, but as harmony. If all things are necessary, then pain is necessary, joy is necessary, growth is necessary. Losing someone, loving someone, letting go and finding peace are all indispensable pieces of the flow. Seen this way, determinism does not steal meaning from life. It simply reminds you that life is a composition written long before, yet still beautiful in the exact moment you're experiencing it. And you, listening here in the quiet of the night, do not need to know where this composition began or where it will end. You only need to feel the notes unfolding right now. As Part 6 closes, your mind may feel as though it is drifting deeper into stillness, as if the universe's largest questions have transformed into gentle waves rolling across the shoreline of your inner world. And from within that calmness, another contemplation slowly emerges. If everything is predetermined, then where does freedom come from? If the Big Bang set everything in motion, is there any room left at all for choice? That question, soft yet profound, carries you toward Part 7, where we step into the shimmering world of quantum randomness and wonder whether human freedom might be nothing more than a tiny flicker of unpredictability within the vast determinism of the cosmos. But not yet. Let the night hold you a little longer. No need to rush. No need to answer anything, just continue to drift. As the lingering echoes of Part 6 drift through you like the distant murmur of waves brushing against the cliffs of your mind, as the thought of a deterministic universe where every domino from the Big Bang has fallen in perfect sequence to bring you to this very moment, sitting here in the soft darkness of night, continues to leave you quietly humbled. A faint sliver of light appears within that stillness. Not a blinding beam that pierces the night, but a delicate shimmer, like a single glowing dust particle suspended in the air. Some scientists hoped that where this filament of light passes through is precisely the realm of quantum mechanics, the place where unpredictability reigns, where classical logic fractures, where the world no longer obeys rigid laws, and where uncertainty sits at the throne. And in this space of uncertainty, a question is whispered. Could human freedom find room to exist here? If our decisions are not entirely pre-written by an unbroken chain of causes, but are instead influenced by quantum randomness, does that make them free? Or is this merely another kind of chaos wrapped in the shimmering illusion of hope? From that gentle shift, Part 7 opens like a door into the realm of particles smaller than anything else, where classical logic dissolves and where many thinkers place their final hope for the existence of human freedom. For the past half-century, quantum physicists have discovered that at the tiniest scales of reality, smaller even than atoms, the universe does not behave as the familiar world does. Instead of following fixed paths, particles exist in many states at once. Instead of occupying precise positions, they become clouds of probability. Instead of obeying strict cause and effect, they sometimes leap between states with no explanation. Imagine this. Instead of a line of dominoes falling one after another, quantum particles are like dominoes spinning in midair, shimmering, then suddenly dropping into one position or another without anyone being able to predict exactly where they will land. Scientists call this quantum randomness. And from this randomness, a spark of hope arises. If the human brain, at some deep level, is influenced by quantum mechanics, perhaps we are not entirely trapped inside the box of determinism. Perhaps within every decision, however small or faint, lies a pocket of genuine freedom, a space not forced by prior events. But then, as we look more deeply, doubt ripples outward like widening rings on water. Because if a decision is not determined, but is instead chosen by randomness, does that make it free? If you flip a coin to decide your future, is that freedom? Or is it simply surrendering your fate to chance? Philosopher Galen Strawson once said, "Randomness doesn't give you freedom, it only removes control." His words stop us in our tracks. If freedom is not in determinism and not in randomness, then where is it? This is where philosophy becomes gentle, soothing, like a soft breath in the night. Philosophy is not here to hand you an answer, but to teach you how to sit peacefully beside the uncertainty. Imagine billions of quantum particles inside your brain, flickering, leaping unpredictably between states. If such fluctuations influence your decisions, can you say you are free? Or are you simply the outcome of those quantum tremors? Some philosophers suggest that freedom does not lie in the origin of a decision, but in our ability to recognize and accept the decision. In other words, freedom is not about choosing from nothing, but about how we live with what is chosen by the universe, by probability, or by our own unfolding story. Søren Kierkegaard once wrote, "Freedom is the dizziness of possibility. Under this light, quantum mechanics does not grant freedom, but softens the walls of determinism, loosening the rigidity of the world, creating small cracks. Places where a human being might step through and ask, 'What can I become?'" Physicist John Wheeler once said something so beautiful, it compels silence. We are no longer observers, we are participants. Meaning that whether the universe is random or determined, we are not merely watching it unfold. We influence it, shape it, press our presence upon it, and in doing so, we experience a form of freedom. Freedom is not absolute. It is a subtle interplay between what we desire, what we feel, and what the world allows. Seen this way, freedom isn't tied to causality, but to lived experience. You are free not because you originate every decision, but because you inhabit every decision. You walk a path not because it was untouched before, but because you feel each step beneath your feet. And that experience, delicate and intimate, cannot be taken away. As the night deepens, you may feel that the fragility of quantum freedom does not frighten you. It softens you. If freedom is not a grand, absolute power, then it becomes a movement. The way you choose to view your life, the way you breathe through pain, the way you open yourself to change. Freedom becomes less about control and more about release. And as part 7 closes, like a page turned slowly in dim light, you will sense within the calm a new question rising. One that brings you closer to the human self, to identity, to the illusions the brain crafts to help us survive. If freedom is uncertain, if decisions may be random, if identity is ever shifting, then is the self we cling to real at all? And that question gently guides you toward Part 8, where we enter one of philosophy and psychology's deepest ideas, the human being as an organized illusion. But not yet. Take one more slow breath, as if the night were wrapping a soft blanket around your shoulders. The journey is long, and there is still so much for you to discover, as the reflections on quantum randomness from Part 7 continue to drift within you like tiny specks of light swirling in a darkened room. As the fragile question of freedom gently dissolves into the slow breathing of the night, another whisper begins to take shape inside the silence. Not loud, not defined, but like a thin stream of water carving its way through stone. If freedom is uncertain, if decisions are sometimes not truly ours, then does the self that feels, chooses, remembers, and thinks actually exist? Or is it merely a silhouette constructed by the brain, a beautifully crafted story we have believed too deeply? This question leads you naturally into Part 8, as if every step from Part 1 until now has been guiding you toward this intersection where the human being confronts one of the most delicate truths about itself. The self may be nothing more than an organized illusion. The idea may seem unsettling at first, but when you sit with it in the quiet of night, breathing slower, listening deeper, you will feel an unexpected tenderness in it, like standing before the nighttime ocean, the vast darkness making you small, yet somehow lighter. The human brain is a remarkable machine. It processes millions of signals each second, forming sensations, memories, desires, and thoughts. But the strangest thing of all is that it also creates the sensation that there is a me observing everything. Neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga wrote in The Consciousness Instinct, "The left brain is a storyteller, and it creates a narrative to explain our actions after they happen," meaning the left hemisphere, the seat of language and reasoning, often does not know in advance what we will do. It merely explains afterward. It is not the controller, but the narrator. When you raise your hand, the brain has already sent the command to your muscles before you feel you made a decision. The sensation of "I decided" arrives after the action. This has led many scientists to believe that the self, the inner observer we assume is in charge, is in fact an illusion created by the brain to maintain psychological stability. An organized illusion, a necessary function not to deceive us, but to keep us from collapsing in chaos. Because if every thought, emotion, and action were experienced as disjointed electrical storms, the mind would fall apart. It needs a center, even if only symbolic, just as a country needs a capital, not to control everything but to create a sense of order. Philosopher David Hume wrote in A Treatise of Human Nature, "I never can catch myself at any time without a perception, and never can observe anything but the perception," meaning he never found the self, only sensations, thoughts, feelings, images, with no owner behind them, only the flow itself. So does the self actually exist, or is it merely a label the brain places upon the continuous stream of consciousness to make life feel coherent? When you close your eyes and feel your breath, you will notice there is no person breathing. There is only breath. When sadness arises, there is the experience of sadness, but you cannot point to a separate self that owns it. The sadness simply unfolds. Thoughts arrive on their own. Images appear on their own, and the self arranges them into a story. This is what many scientists call an organized illusion, a controlled hallucination. But illusion does not mean falsehood. Sometimes illusions are the only way life works. Like rainbows that aren't physical objects but exist in experience, like the sun rising even though the earth rotates. Illusions can be beautiful, useful, meaningful, and the self is one of them. Yet this realization does not make existence colder. It makes it softer, warmer. Because if the self is a story the brain tells, then you can rewrite that story whenever you wish. If the self is not fixed, you are not confined to old wounds. If the self is a flow, you can redirect its current. If the self is an illusion, you can choose a kinder, gentler, more expansive illusion. Nietzsche wrote in The Will to Power, "There is no being behind the doing, acting, becoming. The doer is merely a fiction added to the deed," meaning there is no permanent entity behind action, only action. The actor is something we imagine afterward. You can feel this in your own experience. Sadness comes and goes. Joy rises and fades. Panic appears and subsides. But in all these waves, do you ever find a solid entity beneath them, or only the waves themselves passing through the shore of awareness? Neuroscientist Anil Seth calls the self a controlled hallucination, a hallucination shaped by the brain to navigate the world effectively. If the self is an illusion, then what is real? Perhaps what is real is the flow, the ability to change, the continuity of experience, the presence of this moment, you sitting in the night, listening to slow, gentle words, feeling your breath touch each thought, and noticing yourself becoming lighter. Because if the self is not fixed, you no longer have to hold yourself so tightly. You no longer have to defend an image. You no longer have to suffer under the weight of past expectations. You're allowed to soften and to become something new, gentler, clearer, closer to your true nature. As Part 8 closes like a doorway into a deeper chamber of the mind, you may feel something inside you settle, not confusion, but peace. For when the self is no longer rigid, you're allowed to breathe more fully, to live more lightly. And from within that lightness, another question begins to surface, leading you into Part 9, where we step into the realm of time itself, where the small flutter of a butterfly's wing can alter the future. A new journey prepares to unfold. But for now, let yourself drift a little longer in the soft night. As the reflections on the self as an organized illusion from Part 8 continue to ripple gently within you like soft waves spreading across a dark lake, and as you still feel the quiet tenderness of the idea that the self is not a fixed entity, but a story the brain tells in the most beautiful way, so you don't lose yourself, within that settling stillness, another door begins to open. Not a door about identity, nor about freedom, nor about the mysterious workings of the brain, but about the force that weaves all of them together, time and causality. And like a small shimmering shape flickering beneath moonlight, Part 9 appears with a story that has haunted philosophy, science, literature, and psychology for decades. The butterfly effect, a simple idea carrying the weight of the entire universe. That a single small change can alter the future. One wing beat, one accidental step, one fleeting moment, and the timeline ahead might branch far enough for us to lose sight of where the change began. This idea became widely known through Ray Bradbury's short story, A Sound of Thunder, where a man travels back in time, steps on a butterfly, and returns to a world utterly transformed. Language, politics, society, all different, all because of one small creature. An action so minor it almost means nothing, yet it becomes the seed of monumental change. And while this seems like fiction, it rests on a real scientific concept. Sensitivity in non-linear systems, where tiny differences in initial conditions produce enormous differences in outcomes. Meteorologist Edward Lorenz captured this idea with his famous question: does the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? No one knows the exact answer. Yet what is certain is that the world is so complex we can never predict all consequences of a single small act. And it is this fragility that makes the butterfly effect one of the deepest metaphors for life and the human condition. Sitting in the night, contemplating this, you may feel the universe revolving around a single truth. Everything is connected. Nothing stands alone. Nothing is outside the web. A decision, a word, an action may send ripples farther than you can imagine. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, all things are interconnected, woven together by the invisible thread of becoming, and the butterfly effect is the lived illustration of that invisible thread. But in the context of time travel, the butterfly effect becomes terrifying, poetic, delicate, depending on how you look. Imagine returning to the past. You pause for a few seconds longer. You speak a single line. You choose a different path. You drop a tiny object. A gust of wind shifts. A dust particle falls elsewhere. And from that tiny shift, the entire future trembles like a string lightly plucked. Two people meet who are never meant to. A child is never born. A book is never written. An invention disappears. A tragedy never happens. A love story doesn't begin. This fragility makes time travel a landscape of trembling beauty, because time is not a straight road. It is an infinite web where every choice, however small, opens a new branch. And the longer you think about the butterfly effect, the more clearly you see that it applies not just to time travel, but to your own life. Tiny moments shaped who you are today. A rainy morning when you missed the bus and met someone who changed everything, a message you meant to send but forgot, a decision you made while exhausted, a careless sentence someone said that hurt you. These little moments, like butterflies, have influenced the timeline of your life more than you realize. This can frighten us, that something so small can break everything, but it can also soothe us. Something so small can save everything. A stranger's smile, an apology, an unexpected hug. A moment when you pause just long enough to take one deep breath. Any of these can create a new branch of your future. And here lies the quiet beauty of the butterfly effect. It teaches us that every moment carries meaning, no matter how small. You do not need to change the world to change your life. Sometimes you need something very small, a kindness, a letting go, an understanding, a night you give yourself to listen to a philosophical story, relax your shoulders, and notice something inside you, shifting, softly but unmistakably. In time travel, the butterfly effect makes us feel tiny before the vastness of causality. But in life, it can become a source of strength. If everything is fragile, then every small choice you make can be the beginning of the future you desire. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And if the butterfly effect is true, then what you do, even the smallest act, can create an entire universe of possibilities for yourself." As Part 9 closes, you may feel a gentle calm spreading through your mind. Not the calm of knowing everything, but the calm of accepting that the world is fragile and beautiful in ways we cannot fully explain. And within that fragility, the next question arises as naturally as breath. If one small change can shift the future so dramatically, what happens when those small changes accumulate in a chain? When the butterfly effect stretches across not just a moment, but a sequence of moments. And from the softness of the night, Part 10 is waiting, where we step into the realm of infinite chains of change, where a single ripple can become a wave moving through destiny. But for now, let yourself drift one more breath in the gentle darkness. The night is still soft, and your journey is far from over. As the reflections on the butterfly effect from Part 9 continue to spread softly within you, like circles expanding across the surface of a still lake, and as the image of a tiny butterfly crushed beneath a human step, sending tremors through an entire timeline, lingers like a distant echo in your thoughts. It is within that silence that a deeper realization begins to take shape. What happens when small changes do not exist in isolation, but accumulate across countless moments? What happens when a single ripple does not fade, but continues touching other ripples, weaving into an undercurrent that moves through history, society, human beings, and even the fate of the world? From that long unfolding, Part 10 emerges, like the next chapter of the butterfly effect, but wider, deeper, carrying more layers of meaning. Imagine standing on a cliff overlooking the sea. You drop a pebble into the water. Ripples form, expanding, then dissolving into the vastness. But what if you don't drop only one pebble, but keep dropping pebble after pebble? What if those ripples collide, merge, amplify? That is the image of an infinite chain of change, where one small action does not lead to a single outcome, but to branching sequences, and those branches create further branches, spreading outward like an invisible network that never stops. In chaos theory, this is called extended initial sensitivity, a system not only reacting to its starting point, but amplifying it across time in ways no one can foresee. But in life, You don't need physics to understand this. You only need to look at human history. A chance meeting between strangers becomes the seed of an idea that transforms the world. An accidental discovery in a laboratory becomes a technology that saves millions. One leader's misjudgment ignites war. One small act of kindness from an ordinary person becomes a wave of healing across a community. In War and Peace, Leo Tolstoy wrote, "The strongest of all warriors are these two, time and patience. If time and patience are the mightiest warriors, then small changes accumulated through time are their finest weapons." Through this lens, you begin to see that the world is not shaped by a few grand moments, but by countless small movements stacking quietly upon one another. History is not written by isolated events, but by endlessly branching chains of influence. Science calls this path dependence. The idea that a tiny shift in the past can redirect the entire developmental trajectory of a system. Like a car traveling down a road, a tiny adjustment of the steering wheel, insignificant in the moment, can send it to a completely different destination miles later. And you feel this most deeply when you look back at your own life. Think of the moments that seemed insignificant. A short conversation, a piece of advice, a choice made when you were tired, a moment when you forgave someone, a moment when you stopped instead of running forward. These small moments may have sparked sequences that eventually brought you here, sitting in the soft darkness, listening to these slow, gentle words, noticing something inside you shifting, quietly but clearly. You may not see the entire chain, but it exists, like underwater currents steering the waves above. And when you understand this, you realize your smallest actions hold meaning. A gentle word can begin a chain of healing. A tiny kindness can travel farther than you will ever know. A moment of release can open a future you cannot yet imagine. Infinite chains of change are not warnings about consequence. They are reminders that you always have the chance to touch the future in the most beautiful way. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, and so every small action, even a breath, a pause, a moment of self-reflection, can be the beginning of a chain of change you may not see today, but that may unfold tomorrow, next month, or years from now." The truth is, we never fully know what we are creating. A small shift within you tonight may transform your life 5 years from now. A moment of gentleness tonight may lead to a quieter, more peaceful future. A light decision tomorrow may become the first step of a long journey you never expected. And this, wonderfully, makes life into a symphony that never repeats itself. Not because the notes differ, but because their combinations endlessly change. As part 10 closes, you may feel that your mind has been carried across a long path, from a single butterfly to an infinite network of causality. And within that expansion, another question appears, soft as a breeze. If every chain of change can extend without limit, then is your mere presence enough to alter the past? Can a single glance, a single step, a single moment of being quietly disturb the fabric of time itself? That fragile yet powerful question leads you toward part 11, where we explore the delicate idea that observation itself is transformation. But for now, let your mind drift a little longer in the quiet. Let each ripple fade gently into your breath. You're in the middle of a very long journey, and every part of that journey, even a single sentence, may already be shaping infinite chains of change within your own soul. As the reflections on the infinite chains of change from part 10 linger within you like faint waves drifting across a dark ocean, and as your awareness continues to feel the strange fragility of causality, the sense that even the smallest tremor might open thousands of branching futures. It is in the heart of that stillness that another question begins to surface. Not loud, not forceful, but glowing softly like a dim light beneath deep water. If one small action is enough to change the future, then what happens when you take no action at all? If you simply appear without touching anything, without choosing anything, without altering a single movement, is your presence alone enough to reshape a timeline? This quiet question opens one of the most profound ideas in physics, philosophy, and psychology. Observing is changing. And from this subtle shift, Part 11 unfolds, as though the night itself is inviting you into a realm where your mere existence, the simple fact that you are here, carries the power to make everything move. In quantum mechanics lies a famous principle, the observer effect. It states that observing a quantum particle does more than record its state. The observation changes the state itself. Look at an electron, and it collapses from infinite possibilities into one particular position. Your attention forces reality to choose. Werner Heisenberg called this the uncertainty principle, and in physics and philosophy, he wrote, "What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning." Meaning, when you look, you do not merely look. You transform what you look at. You are not outside the world, you are woven into it. Now imagine applying this idea to time travel. Imagine returning to the past and simply standing there, silent, still, without intervening. No touching, no speaking, no intentional influence, just existing. The soft, unsettling truth is, your presence alone would change the past, because your existence shifts the air, casts a shadow, creates tiny sounds, draws someone's attention, alters their psychology, redirects a breeze, sends a molecule of air on a different path. And from these microscopic variations, the past is no longer what it was. And the strange thing is that this principle is not confined to time travel. It is true in your real life. You cannot observe a person without changing them. You cannot observe a moment without altering it. You cannot look into yourself without reshaping what you see. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster, a reminder that observing anything draws you into its orbit, merging you with it, turning you into a part of the very thing you watch." When you look at your past, the very act of looking changes the memory. When you look at your sorrow, the very act of seeing it transforms its texture. When you look at another person, your gaze shifts who they are in that moment. Observation leaves fingerprints, and from here arises one of the most beautiful insights of Eastern philosophy. Human beings cannot stand outside the world. We are water in the stream, not observers of the stream. We are the breath of the universe, not outsiders inhaling it. We are the story being written, not the reader watching it unfold. You can feel this truth in your own experience. As you listen to this slow, gentle voice in the night, you're not merely listening, you are changing with it. The night is no longer what it was before. Your breath is no longer what it was. And the thoughts you touch now, even lightly, are already branching into new futures. Applied to time travel, the idea that observation is transformation becomes a quiet warning. The past can never remain untouched. Your presence bends causality. Time becomes fragile, delicate, alive. And yet this principle is also profoundly human. In life, you never exist as an outsider. Your presence alone changes the room you walk into, the people you sit beside, the silence you enter. Sometimes you do not need to act to create change. You only need to be there, to be beside someone who is hurting, to remain present in a moment you want to run from, to stay within your own life instead of abandoning yourself. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed, meaning that two human beings touching, even with nothing but presence, are transformed simply by encountering each other. And with this understanding, you begin to look at life differently, slower, gentler. You see that your presence, not your effort, not your words, not your performance, is the first thing that changes the world." As part 11 closes, a soft calm spreads through your mind, as though you're viewing life from a higher place, where every movement is connected by invisible threads. And in that quiet, another question begins to rise, as light as breath. If mere presence changes the past, then what happens when you intentionally try to change it? If someone returns to the past with the purpose of correcting something, does the universe allow it? Or does the attempt itself unleash consequences beyond imagination? This question leads you into part 12, where we explore the beautiful idea that time might heal itself. But before continuing, let yourself rest briefly. Breathe a little deeper. Feel the softness of the night touching your thoughts. The journey is long, and you, in your stillness, are reshaping the world in ways you cannot yet see. As the lingering resonance of part 11 settles gently within you like a thin mist drifting over a moonlit lake, and as the idea that to observe is already to change continues to shimmer softly inside your mind, you may feel something shifting, slow, quiet, deep, in the inner chambers of your awareness. A new understanding begins to form. If your mere presence is enough to tilt the timeline, could the universe possibly have a mechanism to preserve stability? Can time endure endless disturbances? And if not, does it possess a way to correct itself, to heal the fractures caused by human interference? This delicate, sharpened question leads you naturally into part 12, where one of the universe's most comforting and beautiful hypotheses opens before you. Time can heal itself. This idea, known as the self-consistency principle, suggests that no matter what you do in the past, time will adjust so that the final outcome remains the same. You may try to stop an event, but the ripples you create will reorganize themselves into a different sequence that ultimately produces the very result you sought to undo. In other words, you cannot break the timeline because the timeline bends to preserve itself. And strangely, instead of causing confusion, this notion carries a tenderness that feels almost like relief. Imagine returning to the past to prevent a tragedy. You rush, you intervene, you pull someone out of harm's way, yet through a different chain of events, the tragedy still occurs, altered in form, but unchanged in essence. No matter how you struggle, time finds a way to guide everything back to its destined point. Physicist Igor Novikov once wrote, "Nature forbids time paradoxes. Nature does not allow contradictions in time. The universe knows how to correct itself." Sitting quietly in the night with this idea, you may begin to sense a gentle beauty in the way time flows. Because if time cannot be shattered, then the past is never truly lost. The future, in its deeper architecture, cannot be entirely overturned. What needs to happen will happen through one path or another, just as water bends around stones, branches, shadows, but inevitably finds its way to the sea. This idea echoes Marcus Aurelius's words in Meditations. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. The universe is constant transformation, but transformation with structure, direction, and purpose. And the only part you can influence is not the nature of the river, but how you choose to gaze upon its flow. Like time, human beings also possess a self-healing structure. When you face your own past, your mistakes, losses, regrets, you find yourself in the same position as a time traveler yearning to rewrite history. You wish to change it, erase it, fix it. Yet your mind, like the timeline, carries its own healing mechanism. You can remember, you can ache, you can mourn. But over time, memories reorganize themselves, soften and reshape into forms that no longer wound you in the same way. You cannot erase the past, but you can change the way it lives inside you. This too is a form of self-consistency. The psyche adjusts itself so that you can continue living, loving, becoming. Carl Jung captured this truth in one luminous sentence. "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." He did not claim we can change what has occurred. He revealed that we can choose what emerges from it. The hypothesis of time's self-healing opens yet another profound reflection. Perhaps the universe is not a chaotic field, but a structure with many layers of protection. Protection for the continuity of existence itself. When you travel to the past, you cannot break it, because you are always part of it. The actions you believe are changes may actually have already been woven into its fabric, as if time were whispering to you. I accounted for your presence long before you arrived, and with this realization, you no longer feel like an intruder in history, but a stitch in its vast tapestry. Yet the greatest beauty of this hypothesis lies in the healing it offers, because it also implies this. No matter how you break, no matter how you disrupt, no matter how you stray from your path, life will find a way to guide you back to where you need to be. Not the path you want, the path you need. You may turn left, retreat, resist, cling, fight, and still, the events of your life quietly fold themselves in such a way that you become who you must become. Wiser, softer, deeper. Nietzsche expressed this in Ecce Homo with the words, "Amor fati, love of fate." Love your fate. Not as surrender, but as the recognition that forces greater than you are shaping your life, not against you, but toward you. The more closely you look at the idea of time's self-healing, the more clearly you see that your own life has followed the same principle. What seemed like mistakes, detours, wrong turns, lost years, or painful chapters ultimately guided you here. To this moment, in this night, listening to your own story unfold in the quiet. As part 12 closes, you may feel a deeper peace settling in you. Not because you understand time, but because you sense that time, like life, is not an adversary you must defeat. It is a river that knows how to heal itself, how to bend, how to carry you gently toward the place you belong. And within that peace, another question slowly rises. If time self-corrects, then what happens when someone deliberately tries to change the past according to their own desire? Are they resisting the weave of the universe, or simply deepening a chain that was always meant to unfold? This delicate question leads you into part 13, where the stories of those who attempt to rewrite history appear like distant silhouettes in the night. But for now, let the night hold you a little longer. Because even when you do nothing at all, you are still changing. As the reflections on the self-healing hypothesis of time from part 12 continue drifting gently through your mind, like a thin layer of mist that has not yet dissolved, as the image of the timeline softly bending to preserve its final outcome still lingers somewhere within the slow rhythm of your midnight breathing, a new question begins to surface in the stillness, light but deep, like the heartbeat of an ancient secret. If time can adjust itself, what happens when a human being deliberately rebels against it? What happens when a time traveler returns to the past with the explicit intention of altering history, not by accident, not by chance, but with full determination, with pain, with regret, or with hope? And from this shift in the current, Part 13 quietly unfolds, as though we are stepping into the deepest chamber of the story of time, the place where human will confront the laws of the universe themselves. The desire to repair history has always been one of humanity's strongest dreams. Who among us has never thought, if only I could go back to that moment, if only I hadn't said that, if only I could save them, if only I could undo that mistake? We imagine that with one correct action in the past, we could rewrite the entire future. But both philosophy, physics, and psychology whisper a shared truth. Attempts to fix the future by changing the past almost always fail, not because we don't try hard enough, but because the consequences of every action always extend far beyond what we can predict. Time travel, whether in fiction or in thought, is always wrapped in unintended consequences. You may prevent an accident, but unknowingly set the stage for another. You may save one person, only to erase someone else from the timeline. You may change a moment, but at the cost of countless others unraveling. Stephen Hawking once wrote, "The past, like the future, is indefinite and exists only as a spectrum of possibilities." If the past is a spectrum of possibilities, then trying to mend it is like trying to hold water in your hand. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. But the deeper reason why altering the past is impossible goes beyond quantum mechanics or determinism. It lies in something simpler. Humans cannot see the entire network of cause and effect. Imagine standing before a vast tapestry woven from thousands of interlocking threads. You notice one small knot and try to pull it free. But as you pull, distant threads tighten, then another knot snaps open somewhere else. You pull again, and the entire tapestry begins warping in ways you never intended. The past is that tapestry. You see only one knot, but each knot is connected to countless others, stretching across time, across the lives of millions. A tiny decision can generate a chain reaction beyond measurement. And for this reason, many time travel stories arrive at the same truth. Those who try to prevent a future catastrophe often end up causing the very events they sought to avoid. This isn't just metaphor. In psychology, it is called the paradox of intention. The harder you try to control an outcome, the more likely you are to cause the opposite. When you try too hard to heal the past by denying it, the past grips you tighter. When you try to forget pain, the memory intensifies. When you cling to someone, they slip further away. The stronger the intention, the more unpredictable the consequence. Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "The most dangerous of errors are those that look the most plausible. The worst mistakes are often the ones we are most certain we're right about." And this is exactly what happens to the time traveler who tries to edit history. They believe they know what must be changed, but they are only seeing one tiny fragment of a far larger picture, one tiny slice of an infinite timeline. It is like someone trying to change their life by erasing one painful memory, not knowing that the memories shaped their strength, led them to meaningful encounters, and forged the person they have become. In a sense, altering the past is tearing apart the foundation of oneself. Yet here lies the gentle, healing beauty of this idea. Even if you travel back in time and attempt to undo your mistakes, you will only encounter the very lessons life intended for you. Even if you evade one event, it returns in another form, not to punish you, but to complete you. Life, like the timeline, always finds a way to guide you to the place you must reach. What you call a wrong turn may be the only road leading you back to your truest self. In the soft glow of night, when you understand this, a quiet relief spreads through your chest. You do not need to fix the past. It is already complete in its own way, and you, the one listening in stillness, are also becoming complete in your own way. As part 13 closes, you begin to sense another doorway appearing, not behind you like the past, but ahead, opening outward like a widening road. If the time traveler who tries to change history often fails, then what happens when causality itself reverses? What happens when the effect precedes the cause, when the future reaches backward to shape the present? This question, so beautiful that it makes the mind pause for a breath, guides you toward part 14, the paradox of reverse causality. But for now, rest a little longer in the embrace of the night, because even in stillness, even when you do nothing at all, you're already changing the world. As the lingering echoes of part 13 continue trembling inside you like the faint reverberation of an endless temporal corridor, as the image of a traveler trying to repair history only to be bent back by the curve of causality still clings to your thoughts, like a dim streak of light, a new question begins to emerge within the quiet, soft as breath, yet sharp as the edge of a midnight leaf. What happens if causes do not create effects, but effects create their causes? It is a question that seems impossible at first glance, and yet it opens one of the most elegant, elusive, and strangely poetic paradoxes in all theories of time. Reverse causality. And from that subtle shift, part 14 begins to unfold, as though you are stepping from a room of things that can be changed into a room of things that never had a beginning at all. Imagine this. One day, you receive an email. No sender, no reply address. You open it, and inside is a complete guide on how to build a time machine. You follow each step, refine each detail, and eventually, you succeed. Years later, from the future, you return to the past, back to that exact moment, and send yourself the email. But here lies the riddle. Who wrote the email? Not you, because you only copied it. Not the future, because the future only exists because the email did. Not the past, because the past didn't create it. The email created itself. It exists in a perfect closed loop, with no point of origin. That is the beauty of reverse causality. A result emerges before its cause. Or, put differently, a thing brings itself into existence, not by magic, but by the elegant geometry of time. When you sit with this notion in the stillness of the night, you may feel as though you've stepped into another realm, one where time is no longer linear, no longer a sequence of before and after, but a circle folding endlessly upon itself. Consider another example. A renowned musician receives a stunning piece of music, no signature, no author. He learns it, performs it, and the composition becomes famous worldwide. Many years later, when he is old, he travels back in time and hands that same piece of music to his younger self, the very musician who first received it. And once again, the question echoes with the depth of a midnight abyss. Who composed the music? No one. And at the same time, everyone. It exists because it exists, like a whirlpool folding into itself and becoming a complete form. This paradox is known as the bootstrap paradox, and it is one of the ways time whispers to humanity that not everything needs an origin. It recalls Heidegger's words in Being and Time. Being is not a presence that begins. It is a continuity that unfolds. Existence is not a point of departure. It is an unfolding without beginning, without end. The reverse causality paradox is the simplest mirror of this idea. Some things never start anywhere because they have always existed in the loop of their own becoming. But what makes this paradox tender rather than frightening is how deeply it resonates with the inner landscape of the human mind. For our lives, too, are filled with loops without beginnings. Think of a fear you've carried for as long as you can remember. You don't know where it came from. It feels as though it simply arose, self-born. Or a passion that emerged out of nowhere, a quiet magnet pulling your life toward a direction you never planned. Or an inexplicable familiarity, a sense of recognition when you meet someone for the first time. Some things within you have no discernible beginning. You live with them the way you live with a nameless melody you discover inside your own soul. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, writing, "The psyche is not dependent on time and space as we understand them." The mind does not obey time, nor does it obey the linear chain of cause and effect. Some truths within us belong not to the past, but to a larger cycle of existence where origins and outcomes blend into one. Reverse causality suggests that time can create itself. Psychology suggests that the self can create itself too. You do not need a perfect origin story. You do not need a logical cause for everything you feel. You do not need to trace your existence back to a single defining moment. You're allowed to simply be, the way a melody with no composer can still fill a room and move a heart. And when you contemplate this for long enough, a soft realization appears. You do not need to know why you exist in order to live beautifully. You do not need to understand the first chapter of every story. Some stories have no beginning, some sorrows have no cause, some loves have no explanation, and some moments, like this moment where you sit listening in the quiet of night, exist purely for themselves, without a reason. As part 14 begins to close, a quiet, spacious stillness opens inside you, not the stillness of understanding everything, but the stillness of accepting that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. And within that stillness, another question emerges, faint as moonlight rippling across a lake. If an effect can come before its cause, what happens when the effect reaches back and changes the cause? This question, so delicate it slows the heartbeat for a moment, will lead you into part 15, where actions guide us directly into the outcomes we most try to avoid. But for now, soften your shoulders, draw one more gentle breath, and let the night cradle you for just a little longer. As the resonance of part 14 continues to drift softly through you like a faint ring of light dissolving over a still, moonlit lake, as the image of authorless melodies and self-born loops still hovers somewhere between your thoughts, another realization begins to emerge from the quiet. Something familiar, intimate, and yet strangely hidden, as though you have brushed against it many times throughout your life, without ever fully naming it. There are moments when the more we try to avoid something, the closer we move toward it. Moments when the actions we take with all our effort, all our hope, all our intention to prevent an outcome, become the very actions that bring that outcome into existence. From that subtle shift, part 15 opens like the second echo of a deep chamber. Causality sometimes twists back on itself, and our fears become the very path leading us toward what we most want to escape. This is not fiction. It is not a paradox reserved for mathematics or time travel. It is something humans live every day, in quiet, ordinary, painfully real ways. But when placed in the soft, contemplative light of philosophy and time, like a candle flickering at midnight, its depth becomes unmistakable. Imagine a time traveler who foresees a terrible accident. He goes back with fierce determination to change fate. He stands at the precise spot where the tragedy will unfold, warns people, rearranges objects, shifts events. Yet it is his very intervention, his urgency, his disruption that pushes the sequence of events off balance, only to fall perfectly back into the tragedy he sought to prevent. And the accident happens not because he didn't try hard enough, but because his trying became the cause. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy, the prophecy that completes itself, that which we fear, we think about too often, and what we think about, we begin to act toward, and what we act toward becomes real. Nietzsche wrote in Twilight of the Idols, "He who fights monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster." It is not only a philosophical warning, it is a map of how twisted causality can become when fear takes the lead. The more you focus on what you fear becoming, the more your unconscious aligns your actions with that fear. You try too hard, you hold too tightly, you avoid too fiercely, and so you bring into your life the very thing you hoped to avoid. In physics, this resembles a causal loop inversion, a curve in causality where the effect mirrors back to create the cause. In psychology, it appears as thought-action fusion, the belief that thinking about something is already a step toward making it happen. In human life, it looks like this. You try so hard not to disappoint someone, and the pressure causes a mistake. You fear losing someone, and your clinging drives them away. You fear failure, and anxiety clouds your thinking. You want to prove your strength, and the weight of that desire causes you to break. Sometimes, events happen not because we want them, but because we fear them so intensely that we unconsciously carve the path toward them. Freud wrote in Beyond the Pleasure Principle, "We are repeatedly compelled to give up the security of the present for the phantom of the future. And that phantom, that imagined future, becomes the architect of our missteps." Seen this way, Part 15 is not only about time travelers, it is about you, about me, about every human being moving within the strange spiral between hope and fear. When you fear you are not enough, you begin to behave small. When you fear loneliness, you accept what diminishes you. When you fear being hurt, you build walls until no one can reach you. When you fear losing control, you grip so tightly that everything shatters. These are the accidents of the soul, the tragedies born not from fate, but from the movements shaped by fear. Yet the most beautiful part of philosophy spoken softly at night is this. It does not leave you with fear. It invites you to look deeper, gentler, more wholly into that hidden current. Because if actions can create unwanted outcomes, then the opposite is also true. You can create beautiful outcomes without intending to. If fear can twist causality, then love, presence, tenderness can twist it too, but toward healing. If anxiety can create tragedy, then trust can create miracles. If trying too hard to avoid something makes it happen, then sometimes letting go allows things to unfold in the best possible way. And from here emerges one of the deepest teachings of all. You do not need to control everything for things to be okay. You only need to meet each moment with clarity and softness. Let causality unwind itself instead of forcing it with fear. As Part 15 comes to a close, you may feel a gentle settling inside you, as though something invisible has loosened its grip. You begin to see that many of life's accidents are not punishments from the world, but echoes of your own fear. And once you see that, you gain the power to change it. From that quiet settling, another door begins to open, guiding you toward Part 16, where we enter the deep terrain of social psychology. The mirror effect, unconscious mimicry, in the ways human beings shape one another without ever realizing it. But for now, let your shoulders soften. Breathe in once, slow and deep. Breathe out even slower. You're traveling far into the night, and so many beautiful things are still waiting for you. As the reflections on the actions that lead us into the very outcomes we fear in Part 15 continue drifting through you like a deep night wind moving softly through darkened branches, as the idea of self-twisting causality, where fear quietly guides us into what we most try to avoid, still lingers in the slow rhythm of your breath, another stream of thought begins to brighten from within the quiet. Not about time anymore, not about fate, but about human beings themselves, about the way we unconsciously shape one another, like surfaces of water reflecting the same moonlight, brushing lightly against each other and subtly changing one another's contours. Part 16 opens from this tender shift, like a doorway made of light unfolding into the night, leading us into a world where humans imitate one another not through logic, but through invisible vibrations beneath the surface of the mind. Psychological mirroring. What is strange is that we do not need to try in order to reflect someone else. We do it as naturally as breathing, as silently as a heartbeat, as effortlessly as still water remembering the touch of wind. When sitting face to face with someone, we unconsciously adjust our tone of voice, our breathing, our pace of speech, our facial expressions, even the posture of our bodies to match theirs. Carl Rogers called this natural alignment congruence, the effortless resonance between two minds. But neuroscience goes even deeper, with the discovery of mirror neurons, cells that activate when we watch someone else act, as though we ourselves were performing the action. When you see someone smile, mirror neurons make your own mouth want to soften. When you see someone sad, they make your chest grow heavier. When you hear someone speak in a warm, low voice, you instinctively relax. This turns the world into an endless web of reflections, where every person becomes, in some way, a part of the person standing before them. In Phenomenology of Perception, Merleau-Ponty wrote, "I know myself through the other. This is not only philosophy, it is biology. We are built to mirror, and mirroring is what allows connection to exist. But its deepest beauty lies here. Mirroring is the foundation of friendliness, and at the same time, it is the tool of manipulation. In kind-hearted people, mirroring is the mind's way of saying, 'I am safe with you.' In manipulators, mirroring becomes a way of whispering, 'I am like you. Trust me.' The vulnerability of being human lies in this. We trust what resembles us. A person copies our posture. We feel they are approachable. A person matches our vocal tone. We feel they are trustworthy. A person echoes our body language. We believe they understand us. And in those quiet moments, the heart opens long before the mind has time to check the lock. Perhaps this is why Oscar Wilde wrote in The Picture of Dorian Gray, 'I am tired of myself tonight. I should like to be somebody else.' Because humans are wandering mirrors, always reflecting someone, always becoming a little more like someone, always allowing others to become a little part of us. In the soft depth of night, when you think about this long enough, you may notice something gentle rising within you. You have never truly been alone. Even in the moments that felt hollow, your mind was carrying countless reflections. Faces you have known, voices that once soothed you, people who left traces on the neural fabric of your being. You carry the smile of someone who once made you happy. You carry the gaze of someone who once stirred your heart. You carry the voice of someone who once comforted you. You are the convergence of countless reflections, and this is one of the most beautiful truths of being human. Yet on the other side, mirroring is also where darkness slips in. Manipulators know exactly how to use mirroring to make you believe they understand you, are like you, are safe. Someone can enter your life simply by copying your rhythm, your gestures, your laughter, even the quiet sadness you carry. Not because they feel it, but because they want you to open the door. And once you open it, they place invisible strings into your hands. In psychology, this is strategic mirroring, the deliberate imitation used by emotional manipulators. A compliment echoed at the right moment, a synchronized breath, a gaze reflecting your emotion, a repeated phrase, "Me too," each one a key, each one gently unlocking your trust. And when trust opens, influence enters. This recalls Nietzsche's warning in Beyond Good and Evil. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster. Because in the world of reflection, the line between understanding and manipulation is as thin as a sigh. But in the stillness of night, when you look again with softness, you realize something comforting. Mirroring is also how humans heal one another. A nod of understanding can save a cracking heart. A knowing look can make someone feel seen after months of loneliness. A voice that matches your emotional frequency can pull a soul out of isolation. Mirroring is not only a tool for manipulation, it is the natural mechanism of trust, connection, and humanity. And you, the one listening to these words, have also healed someone before, without knowing it, simply by resonating with them. As part 16 gently closes, you may feel a deep tenderness open within you, as though you have touched the primal essence of human connection, not through thought, but through reflection. Not through action, but through presence. And from within that softness, another question is beginning to form, one that will guide you into a deeper layer of social psychology. What happens when mirroring does not live in the body or emotion, but in the voice, in the rhythm, in the music of conversation itself? Part 17 is Waiting, where we step into the world of vocal mimicry and emotional cadence, where every tone becomes a bridge between two souls. But for now, breathe softly once more. You're deep into your journey, and the night is still holding you in its gentle arms, as the reflections of psychological mirroring from Part 16 continue to ripple inside you like soft circles of moonlight drifting across the surface of a quiet night lake. As the image of two minds unconsciously aligning through glances, gestures, breaths, still hums faintly in the depths of your awareness, another dimension of reflection begins to gently reveal itself. No longer the reflection of bodies, but something more delicate, more fluid, more elusive, the mirroring of voice and emotion. It is the way human sound waves pass through one another, weaving themselves into an invisible web of connection, or just as easily, of manipulation. And from that silky shift of perception, Part 17 begins to unfold like a candle being lit in a dark room, small in flame, yet bright enough to illuminate subtleties we overlook in daylight. Human beings are creatures of resonance. Not only resonance of bodies and facial expressions, but of vocal rhythm, the oldest musical instrument of our species. When you speak to someone, you're not merely listening to them. You're entering their breath. If they slow down, you slow down too. If they whisper, you lower your voice without noticing. If they brighten with excitement, your tone lifts. If they sink into sadness, your voice deepens like a candle burning low into the night. These shifts happen so softly that you do not even realize you are doing them. In social psychology, this is known as emotional mirroring, an unconscious mechanism the mind uses to build connection. Martin Buber once wrote, "All real living is meeting." And the deepest meeting often occurs not in the eyes, but in sound, in the way your voice becomes a bridge into someone else's inner world. And yet, like everything in human nature, Vocal and emotional mirroring holds two faces, one of connection and one of manipulation. Kind-hearted people use mirroring to create safety. When someone is sad, they lower their voice to share the weight. When someone is anxious, they slow their speech to help them breathe. When someone is exhausted, they avoid sharp or bright tones that might overwhelm the heart. They become an acoustic mirror, reflecting the emotional frequency of the other to soothe and stabilize. But manipulators use the same technique in the opposite direction. They adjust their voice not to connect, but to slip quietly into someone's mind. They match your tone so you feel we're alike. They echo your emotional rhythm so you trust. They reflect your softness or vulnerability so you open the door you are trying to keep closed. And once the door opens, they step in with their own intentions. In The Art of Seduction, Robert Greene writes, "Understand the person's spirit, and you will know which tone of voice will move them." Manipulators understand this more clearly than anyone. The unsettling truth is, we rarely realize when we are being guided by a voice. Voice is the language of the subconscious. It does not enter through the ears, it enters through the softest parts of the mind, slipping in before logic can raise its guard. Night is when this becomes clearest. When the world outside is quiet, the mind becomes more open, more sensitive, and a single shift in tone, a single vibration, can reach depths that thought alone cannot touch. Yet the strangeness of emotional mimicry lies here. It is not only a way others understand us, it is a way we understand ourselves. When you mirror someone's calm, you begin to feel calm. When you hear a warm, low voice, you feel safe for no reason you can explain. Voice mirrors not only others, but your own hidden desires. If you long to be understood, your voice naturally aligns with someone who listens deeply. If you long to heal, your voice softens when you hear a soothing tone. If you long for love, you unconsciously mirror the tenderness of the one who stirs your heart. Voice reveals truths we are not yet brave enough to admit. Rilke wrote in Letters to a Young Poet, "Everything is gestation and bringing forth. Emotional mirroring is the same. It does not arrive suddenly. It grows in silence, nourished by the human desire for connection, and gradually blossoms into alignment. And if you pay attention, you may notice you are experiencing it even now. The slow, steady cadence of these words, though heard only inside your mind, gently quiets your breathing, softens your thoughts, lays down the day's noise. This is the power of emotional frequency, the power humans share not through sight, but through the heart. But the most beautiful truth mirroring of voice and emotion reveals is this: connection lives not in words, but in rhythm. The rhythm of breathing, the rhythm of silence, the rhythm of how someone listens. Often it is not the phrase "I understand you" that builds trust, but the way someone instinctively adjusts their tone to meet your emotional state without trying. As part 17 closes, you may feel a warmth spreading quietly through your chest. Not a dramatic feeling, but a soft recognition that this world offers countless ways for humans to touch one another without ever laying a hand. And within that warmth, a question unfolds like a door opening with nothing but wind. If humans can be connected through such gentle mimicry, what happens when this mimicry becomes deliberate, used to persuade, to guide, to shape another's choice? That question leads you toward Part 18, where we step into the world of psychological strategy, subtle persuasion, and rhythms designed to shift human decisions. But for now, let the voice inside your mind slow by one more breath. The night is long, and your journey is still opening, layer by layer, in the deep quiet of your own being. as the lingering resonance of part 17 continues to drift through you like the fading vibration of a piano key pressed deep inside the quietest corner of your inner world. It's the idea of vocal and emotional mirroring, the way human beings unconsciously merge into each other's frequencies, creating connection or unlocking the door to manipulation, still shimmers faintly across the slow surface of your thoughts. Another layer of influence begins to unfurl. Not the gentle, unconscious synchrony anymore, but deliberate guidance, subtle persuasion, psychological steering carried out in steps so small you barely notice them happening. And from that smooth shift, part 18 emerges like a door opening just wide enough for a single foot to slip inside. The foot in the door technique. A simple, psychological mechanism with the power to bend decisions quietly, almost invisibly. Imagine this. You are at home on a calm afternoon. Someone knocks, smiles, and says, "May I ask you a tiny question? It will only take 30 seconds." The request feels harmless, polite, too small to refuse. You agree. The next day, they return, this time asking you to fill out a 5-minute survey. You've helped them once, so it feels natural to help again. A week later, they invite you to donate, or sign a commitment, or participate in something you would normally decline without hesitation. And you agree, not because the request is reasonable, but because you opened the door with the first tiny yes. This is foot in the door. Begin with a small request so the mind persuades itself into accepting larger ones. Psychologist Jonathan Friedman called it a self-perception shift. We do not act because we want to. Our initial action convinces us that we are the kind of person who agrees. Each subsequent request simply aligns with that new identity. In Persuasion, Robert Cialdini wrote, "Commitment is the engine of consistency. When we do something once, we want our later actions to match the person we believe we have become." This opens a deeper question. Is foot in the door merely a persuasion technique, or a mirror reflecting how fragile humans are before their own desire to be consistent? Look at your life and you will see. This technique is used not only by marketers or manipulators, but by life itself. You begin a tiny habit, and it carries you farther than you imagined. You agree with yourself on one subtle change, and it becomes a transformation. You fall in love with someone because of a single small detail, and soon they become the center of your heart. This is the gentle side of the technique. Great change begins with soft, quiet steps. But its darker side is colder, deeper. Someone asks you for a small secret, then a bigger one still, until you're in too far to retreat. Someone borrows a little of your time, then more and more, until your schedule, your emotions, your freedom begin bending around them. Someone asks forgiveness for a small mistake, then a larger one, then a recurring pattern, and you forgive not because they deserve it, but because you forgave once before. Humans aren't persuaded by big requests. We are persuaded by small ones. A small request carries no threat, no pressure, no alarm. It is simply a gentle foot placed between the door and its frame, just enough to ensure the door will never fully close again. And soon, larger requests don't feel like invasions, they feel like continuity. Because the mind always seeks to remain consistent with itself. The irony is this. We believe we make decisions through logic, yet most decisions are made to protect the image we hold of ourselves. Nietzsche wrote in Human All Too Human, we don't truly want the thing. We want to be the kind of person who wants it. Foot in the door exploits exactly that, not by changing our choices, but by changing who we think we are. yet in the softness of night, where every sentence becomes a whisper brushing against the deepest folds of the mind, a gentler realization appears. If the mind can be guided by small steps, then we can use the same principle to heal ourselves. You do not need to change your life in a day. You only need one small step, one slow breath, one quiet evening for yourself, one philosophical story whispered into the dark. Just one tiny step, and the next step becomes easier, lighter, more natural, like a door opening without force, moved by nothing more than a gentle hand. As Part 18 closes, you may feel a new clarity forming inside you. Humans are not shaped by grand movements, but by small shifts repeated softly. And once you understand this, you begin to see the world and yourself with calmer, wiser eyes. From that awareness, another question rises in the dark, deep as a midnight sigh. If foot in the door begins with a small request, then what of the opposite technique, one that begins with a request so large it must be refused, making a smaller request suddenly acceptable? That question, soft and deep as night settling over a quiet lake, leads you into Part 19, the door in the face technique, where refusal becomes the catalyst for agreement. But for now, let yourself pause. Release your shoulders and drift a little further into the gentle silence you have been seeking, as the echo of Part 18 continues to vibrate inside you like the soft after sound of a door gently opening. As the idea of the foot in the door technique, the way a single small request can open an entire path of agreement, still rests quietly somewhere within your unfolding thoughts. Another movement begins to rise. A movement that feels like the opposite, like the shadowed face of the moon, like the deep note that follows a long, bright one. If a small request can open the door to larger requests, what happens when someone deliberately begins with a request far too large, only to make the small one feel reasonable? From that question, Part 19 unfolds, slow, warm, and quietly revealing, leading us toward the door in the face technique. An elegant art of persuasion where rejection is not failure, but the foundation of agreement. Imagine someone knocking lightly at your door and asking, with utmost sincerity, "Would you be willing to volunteer 1 hour every week for a community program?" You hesitate. 1 hour a week feels too heavy. You decline politely. The person nods, smiles as if expecting your refusal, and then asks, "Then, would you be able to spare just 10 minutes to sign this petition?" 10 minutes compared to 1 hour every week suddenly feels small, reasonable, and almost impossible to reject. So you agree. Not because the smaller request is inherently easy, but because the larger request has shifted your sense of proportion. This is door in the face. Make a large request first, expecting it to be rejected, so the smaller request becomes the natural choice. If foot in the door depends on consistency, door in the face depends on reciprocity. When someone lowers their request, the mind feels they have conceded, and we should concede in return. As Robert Cialdini wrote in Influence, we feel obligated to return the concessions made to us. Reciprocal concessions are the heart of negotiation. But the unsettling beauty of this technique lies here. The persuader did not actually concede. The large request was bait. The small request was the target all along. And this mechanism does not only appear in sales or negotiation. It appears in the subtle corners of our lives. Someone asks you for too much, then steps back and makes you feel valued, so you comply. Someone criticizes you too harshly, then softens and you feel grateful, even though the softness is simply normalcy. Someone asks for unreasonable sacrifice, then reduces it slightly, making you think the reduced version is fair. You agree not because it is right, but because the initial request distorted your sense of fairness. Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "Man is more easily deceived by what appears to be fairness rather than what is truly fair." Door in the Face operates exactly through this illusion, a feigned fairness that masks intention. When you slow down and look closely, you see this technique echo in many corners of human life. In negotiation, start unreasonably high, then discount. In relationships, accuse heavily, then ease off to create a debt of gentleness. In psychology, induce guilt, then offer a solution that seems like mercy. In education, set extreme expectations, so moderate expectations feel like gifts. In love, pressure intensely, then withdraw slightly so the other feels relief and yields. And in this, the delicate and shadowed nature of the human mind reveals itself in the soft light of night. Humans long to reciprocate what they perceive as kindness, even when that kindness is a crafted illusion. But beneath the manipulation, beneath the strategy, a gentler question arises, one that touches the heart more deeply. If humans are so influenced by how a request is framed, then what truly belongs to our own will? What truly counts as free choice? And what is simply our mind responding to the structure of the moment? Door in the Face shows us something profound. We do not decide based only on the request itself. We decide based on what came before. The preceding context shapes the meaning of what follows, just as sunset shapes the beauty of twilight. But this insight is not meant only to make us wary of manipulation. It also opens a doorway into healing. If the world can influence us through how it frames things, then we can influence ourselves the same way. Instead of asking, "Why am I never good enough?" we can reframe it as, "How can I be just a little better than yesterday?" Instead of saying, "I can't do this," we might ask, "If I broke it into smaller steps, would it feel possible?" Instead of viewing life as overwhelming, we can begin with a request to ourselves that is small, gentle, humane. When you frame your inner questions with softness, with patience, your mind opens in the same quiet way it opens to persuasion. The difference is that this time, you are not being led away from yourself. You are leading yourself back home. As part 19 closes, a warm recognition may begin to settle inside you. Even psychological tricks can reveal the architecture of human decision-making, showing us how to understand ourselves and how to live more lightly. And from within that calm awareness, another question starts to rise, moving like a shape in the night fog. If humans can be guided by the illusion of fairness, what happens when they are guided by the illusion that their own perception is untrustworthy? This question leads you toward part 20, where the quiet, devastating shadows of gaslighting begin to stir. But for now, breathe softly. Let your shoulders fall. The night is long, and you are descending deeper into yourself, layer by layer, carried by a gentle stillness. As the soft resonance of part 19 continues to expand inside you like a ripple spreading across the still surface of a midnight lake, as the story of Door in the Face, where false concessions quietly guide the mind into a predetermined orbit, continues to linger in your awareness like a faint whisper drifting through the dark, something deeper begins to stir. Not the persuasion of structured requests, not the lead of emotional mirroring or tonal mimicry. This time, you step into a colder, murkier chamber of human psychology, a place where the shadows are not outside you, but within your own perception. Gaslighting, the manipulation of reality itself, where the goal is no longer to convince you of someone else's truth, but to make you doubt your own. And from that slow, quiet shift, part 20 emerges like a doorway into a dim room where the light is not extinguished at once, but slowly turned down, just enough so you begin wondering whether the lamp is fading or your mind is failing. The term gaslighting comes from the 1938 play Gaslight, where a husband subtly lowers the brightness of the lamps each night, only to insist that nothing has changed whenever his wife notices. You're imagining things. That never happened. You must be confused. Gradually, she begins doubting not the lights, but herself. She questions her memory, her senses, her thoughts, and finally, her sanity. This is the true violence of gaslighting. It destroys not the body, but the foundation of self-trust. Gaslighting does not need shouting. It does not need threats. It begins with a seed, a tiny, almost invisible whisper. What if I'm wrong? From that one seed, doubt grows roots in the silent spaces of your mind. And when doubt becomes accepted as truth, the manipulator no longer needs to push. You will question yourself on their behalf. Robin Stern, author of The Gaslight Effect, writes, "When someone is gaslighting you, you start to lose your sense of reality. But gaslighting is not merely the denial of truth. It is the reconstruction of truth to benefit the manipulator. It makes you question everything: your memory, your intuition, your logic, your emotions, your worth, your stability, and eventually, your very existence as a reliable narrator of your own life." What makes gaslighting so chilling is that victims rarely realize what is happening, not because they are weak, but because gaslighting is designed to make you mistrust your own perception. And it never begins with blatant contradictions. It begins with gentle corrections. You must be remembering it wrong. I never said that. You're taking things too seriously. You're imagining problems. You're being dramatic. One by one, these phrases nibble at the edges of your certainty until eventually, doubt replaces clarity. And once you doubt yourself, the manipulator no longer needs to work. You will second-guess everything. You will rewrite your memories to match their narrative. You will silence your instincts because you assume they know better. As Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. But in gaslighting, illusions aren't preserved. Reality itself is stolen. And the manipulation does not exist only in toxic romantic relationships. It appears everywhere. In families, when parents deny a child's emotions. In workplaces, when leaders rewrite events to protect themselves. In communities where groups deny the pain of a minority. In politics, where entire nations are taught to question what they see and believe what they're told. And most devastatingly, inside one's own mind. Because gaslighting has a darker evolution, self-gaslighting, when you internalize the voices that once dismissed you. The criticisms you heard from others become the lines you repeat to yourself. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm remembering things wrong. Maybe I am the problem. In this way, the manipulator implants a ghost inside you, a ghost that speaks in your own voice, and yet, in the soft quiet of this night as you listen inwardly, a truth gently rises. Gaslighting only succeeds when you forget how to trust yourself. And so healing begins at the same root, reclaiming your inner authority, trusting your first instinct, honoring your emotions, believing your memory. Even if someone once tried to rewrite it, you're allowed to trust your own truth. As Rilke whispered in letters to a young poet, go into yourself, go inward, into the untouched room where your truth still lives, unbroken despite the shadows cast upon it. There, in that inner chamber, you recover what gaslighting tries to erase. Your inner compass, your inner witness, your inner light. As part 20 draws to a close, You might feel a subtle shift inside you, as though you have stepped out of a darkened room, and even if the light is faint, it is yours again. And in that faint return of clarity, a new question begins to form, quiet, sharp, and carrying the weight of a deeper danger. If gaslighting manipulates perception, what happens when manipulation goes beyond perception, reshaping beliefs, emotions, identity itself? That question leads you toward Part 21, Brainwashing, where the goal is not doubt, but transformation, not confusion, but control, not distortion, but replacement. But for now, breathe. Let the night settle around you like a soft blanket. You are moving through the deepest layers of the human mind, and doing so with extraordinary gentleness. As the last echoes of Part 20 continue drifting through you like soft ripples expanding across the deep well of your awareness, as the story of gaslighting still leaves its faint aftershocks, that fragile space where a person is torn away from the foundation of their own memory and emotion, something darker, heavier, deeper begins to rise. If gaslighting is the art of making you doubt yourself, then what you are about to step into in Part 21 is its grand, terrifying sibling, a version far more complete, far more invasive, far more total. Here, manipulation does not merely distort perception, it dismantles and rebuilds the entire architecture of a human being. And like an underground current, shifting slowly but irresistibly through bedrock, Part 21 opens the world of brainwashing, the systematic unraveling of the self, a landscape where the will is disassembled piece by piece, where beliefs are broken and reassembled, where a person can be sculpted into someone unrecognizable, loving what they once hated, fearing what they once trusted, worshipping what they once ran from. Brainwashing doesn't happen in a moment. It happens in a process, in repetition, in environment, in isolation, in the slow erosion of the mind, where the self weakens without realizing it is weakening. Hannah Arendt once wrote in The Origins of Totalitarianism, "The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction no longer exists." That is the essence of brainwashing. Not to impose a belief, but to erase the border between truth and falsehood, leaving the mind soft, shapeless, unable to trust its own reflections. If gaslighting is a flickering lamp confusing your vision, brainwashing is the sky dyed a different color. If gaslighting makes you question your memory, brainwashing installs new memories entirely, even those that never existed. The process often begins with the first step, simple yet devastating: isolation. Isolation from family, from friends, from community, from familiar language, familiar values, familiar rhythms. When you lose connection, you lose mirrors. When you lose mirrors, you lose the ability to measure yourself. And when you lose the ability to measure yourself, you become vulnerable to any external force offering definition. Michel Foucault wrote in Discipline and Punish, "Isolation is the primary technique of power. In brainwashing, it is the foundation. After isolation comes destabilization, emotional, psychological, sensory. Days and nights blur. Information is controlled. Emotions are pushed into overload or numbness. A person in this phase can no longer tell which feelings are authentic and which were engineered by the environment. When the mind is exhausted, old beliefs crack. And at that exact fault line, the next stage begins: implantation, a new truth, a new authority, a new worldview, a new identity. These are introduced gently at first, then repeatedly, then relentlessly. Through slogans, through rituals, through punishments and rewards, through symbols, through constant repetition. Slowly, the internal compass is replaced with an external one, not by force, but by exhaustion. Because the mind, no matter how strong, always seeks coherence. When its inner world collapses, it clings to any structure it's given, even if that structure is a lie. The most frightening part of brainwashing is not the external control. The most frightening part is when the victim begins to defend the new belief, not out of fear, but out of genuine internal conviction. When the manipulated begins to protect their manipulator. When they reject their old self with the same passion they once resisted the new one. That is the moment the transformation is complete. Light replaced with imitation light. Story replaced with imposed story. Identity broken down and rebuilt in the image of another. In 1984, George Orwell wrote, "The most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history." And that is the quiet horror of brainwashing. Not erasing memory, but erasing meaning. Not removing the truth, but making truth irrelevant. Yet in the stillness of this night, as you listen from a place deep beneath the noise, another understanding emerges. Brainwashing works only when connection, clarity, and inner light have been stripped away. Which means the road back, the path of healing, begins at those exact points. If isolation is the root of brainwashing, then connection is the root of recovery. If destabilization is the tool of control, then clarity is the tool of freedom. If imposed belief rebuilds the false self, then discovered belief rebuilds the real one. A person may be separated from themselves for a time, but the truth inside them cannot be extinguished. It waits, it hides, it sleeps. But it does not die. As Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Even if the mind has been bent or blurred or fractured by manipulation, the path home, the return to oneself, is always possible. Perhaps the very moment you're living now, sitting in the quiet, breathing softly, letting this story seep into you, is part of that journey. A remembering, a gathering, a slow reassembly of the inner architecture that has always belonged to you. As part 21 closes, you might feel something subtle settling into place inside you, like a stone returning to the riverbed it never truly left. And in that gentle settling, another question rises, tender but heavy, like a shadow against moonlight. If the mind can be reshaped through manipulation, what happens when the target is not the mind, but the heart? When the manipulation does not aim to distort belief, but to intoxicate emotion? That question guides you toward part 22. Love bombing and the addiction to affection, where the brightness of affection can hide the sharpest of thorns. But for now, breathe. Let the quiet hold you. The night is deep, and you're traveling into yourself with extraordinary gentleness. As the heavy but necessary reflections of part 21 continue to drift through your mind like a layer of night mist that has yet to lift, as the image of a human being slowly separated from themselves by layers of borrowed beliefs, by isolation, destabilization, and cognitive reconstruction, still echoes faintly in your thoughts like the distant beat of a drum. It is from within this dimness that a different kind of flame begins to glow. Not a violent blaze, but a gentle spark disguised as sweetness, the promise of love. For if brainwashing manipulates the intellect, then in part 22 we step into a softer, subtler, more romantic, yet far more dangerous shape of manipulation. Love bombing, the intoxication of emotional excess. A sweetness so overwhelming that a person does not realize they are losing their freedom. And like a seamless continuation from Part 21, Part 22 unfolds in the slow breath of night, reminding you that even things shaped like love can become the most delicate trap of all. Love bombing always begins with light, a light that appears beautiful, relentless attention, exaggerated praise, intense declarations, constant messages, unwavering presence that slowly becomes suffocating. Manipulators do not enter a life cloaked in darkness. They enter through radiance, radiance so blinding that your eyes can no longer distinguish sincerity from exaggeration, truth from illusion. At first, love bombing feels like a rain of petals. You're told you are the only one, that they have never met anyone like you, that you make them want to change their life, that your connection is destined, that every detail about you is perfect. You become the center of their universe, or rather, they make you believe you're the center of it. Erich Fromm once wrote in The Art of Loving, "Immature love says, 'I love you because I need you.' Mature love says, 'I need you because I love you.'" Love bombing belongs to the first type. I love you because I need you, or more precisely, because I need you to fill the emptiness inside me. The danger of love bombing lies in this. It does not arrive as demand, but as admiration without boundary. The person being targeted does not realize they are being controlled because the control is wrapped in honey. But as all illusions do, it eventually collapses. The collapse does not come suddenly. It comes only after you have become accustomed to the emotional highs, to the constant attention, to being adored. And then one day, the messages slow, the warmth fades, the intensity disappears. Silence replaces sweetness. A void opens, not because love has vanished, but because the emotional dosage you unknowingly depended on has been withdrawn. Love bombing creates emotional addiction, for emotion is the strongest narcotic the human brain has ever known. And like all addictions, the higher the dose, the deeper the withdrawal. In that emptiness, the victim begins to try harder, trying to be better, sweeter, more like the version the manipulator once idealized. They try to earn back the attention that was intentionally withdrawn. And in that moment, dependence begins. The manipulator no longer needs to try. The victim now tries on their behalf. Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. Within that space lies our power to choose. But in love bombing, that space becomes so narrow that the victim can no longer choose. Emotion takes the place of logic entirely. And yet, love bombing is not only enacted by intentional manipulators, it is also enacted by those emotionally unstable, who never intend to harm but create harm because they cannot sustain the intensity they themselves ignite. At its core, love bombing reveals the most fragile truth about the human heart. We ache to be seen, to be valued, to be loved with a force that convinces us we matter. And when the storm finally quiets, we feel empty, not because the person left, but because we were never loved with real love. We were loved with intensity, not depth. Rilke once wrote in Letters to a Young Poet, "For one human being to love another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks. It is not intense love that is difficult. It is true love." Love bombing chooses the easy route, creating the illusion of deep love by replacing time and patience with speed and emotional force. But in the stillness of night, as you breathe through these words, a softer truth emerges. Love bombing only ensnares hearts that do not yet fully believe in their own worth. Those who fall for emotional addiction do not fall because they are weak. They fall because they are deeply longing for affection. And that longing opens the door to the most profound healing. Not avoiding love bombing, but learning to recognize real love when it arrives. Real love does not rush in like a storm. It arrives like dawn, slow, warm, steady. Real love does not make you panic at the thought of losing it. It makes you peaceful when it is present. Real love does not overwhelm you with promises. It shows up with consistency. Real love does not make you addicted. It makes you whole. And in the quiet of this moment, when your heart softens, you recognize that you deserve that kind of love, the kind that strengthens you, steadies you, deepens you. As part 22 comes to a close, something inside you settles, as lightly as a feather falling out of the wind. And from that lightness, the next question begins to form. What happens when manipulation does not come through love, but through the fear of losing what is scarce? When the human mind hungers for what it cannot have? That question will lead you into part 23. The psychology of scarcity and the fear of loss. But for now, breathe slowly. The night is gentle. Your mind is open. And this journey is guiding you deeper into yourself, with a softness that asks for nothing but your presence. As the lingering echoes of part 22 continue drifting through you like the last warmth of a candle that has just gone out, as the reflections on love bombing, on how a human being can become addicted to their own emotions, still ripple faintly within you like this soft movement of water beneath the surface of the heart. It is within this very stillness that another truth, older and quieter, begins to take shape. A truth that does not arrive through emotional excess or through the overwhelming flood of love, but through its opposite, absence. For if love bombing manipulates through surplus, then what opens in part 23 is its shadow, scarcity and the fear of loss, a psychological force so ancient and instinctive that even the strongest minds struggle to escape it. The scarcity effect is not an invention of modern society. It is a biological memory, carved deep into the architecture of the human brain since the days our ancestors wandered ancient plains, where what was rare could decide life or death. And though the world has changed, that instinct still sleeps within us, waiting for the smallest trigger to awaken. In Influence, Robert Cialdini wrote, "Opportunities seem more valuable to us when they are less available. The scarcer something appears, the more intensely we desire it, and the more terrified we become at the possibility of losing it." Scarcity does not simply make us want what we cannot have. It makes us unable to bear the thought that we cannot have it. In economics, it creates bubbles. In politics, it breeds extremism. In society, it sends people chasing last chance. Only today, limited edition, not out of need, but out of fear. And in toxic relationships, it becomes the sharpest tool of emotional manipulation. If love bombing makes us addicted through excess, scarcity makes us addicted through withdrawal. Two opposite techniques that lead to the same destination, dependence. Imagine someone who, at first, showered you with attention, messages, affection, words of love, time, presence, and then suddenly, without reason, without warning, withdrew. They turn from a rainstorm into a desert. In that moment, scarcity takes over. You begin to wonder, what did I do wrong? Why did they change? How can I get that version of them back? You're no longer longing for them. You're longing for the version of them who was abundant. When something that brought joy becomes rare, the mind enters emotional addiction. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "The value of a thing lies not in what one attains with it, but in what one pays for it, what it costs us." Scarcity exploits this mercilessly. In toxic dynamics, manipulators know that when they become unpredictable, distant or difficult to reach, their perceived value increases. Not their true value, but the illusion of value created by intermittent access. They become the only one who can give you that feeling because they are the only one who can take it away. They become a rare opportunity because they make you believe you could lose them at any moment. And in the fear of losing them, you first begin losing yourself. Scarcity governs more than relationships. A product labeled running out suddenly becomes irresistible. A chance labeled few spots left feels urgent. A person described as hard to win over becomes magnetic. A group that warns you might be excluded becomes alluring. A society that whispers you're falling behind becomes a cage. Humans do not fear not achieving, they fear losing. A subtle distinction that shapes entire lifetimes. It explains why the fear of losing freedom feels stronger than the joy of having it. Why the fear of losing love feels heavier than the warmth of experiencing it. Why the fear of failure stops us more than hope motivates us. Kierkegaard once wrote, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, but scarcity intensifies this dizziness by making us panic over things we never even owned." Yet in the quiet tenderness of this night, as you let these words move gently through you, you begin to see something softer hidden beneath the psychology of scarcity. Scarcity reveals what we have not yet learned to appreciate while it was abundant. Love does not become precious because it is rare. It becomes precious because it is deep. Time with someone does not become valuable because it is scarce. It becomes valuable because it is sincere. Someone's presence does not mean more because it is infrequent. It means more because it is real. If scarcity provokes panic, awareness brings peace. If scarcity makes us chase what we believe we are losing, awareness invites us to ask whether it was truly ours to begin with. And in this moment, you may feel a quiet truth stirring like a breeze across the heart. The most precious things in life are not precious because they are rare. They are precious because you choose to see them with gratitude. As part 23 closes, a thin veil of understanding settles within you, not as fear, but as clarity, a reminder to live more deeply, more truthfully, more fully. And from within this softness, a new question rises. If our minds can be manipulated by what we fear losing, then what happens when the manipulation targets not scarcity, but belief itself? When we no longer seek truth, but only seek what makes us feel right? That question leads into part 24, confirmation bias. But for now, breathe lightly and slowly. The night is long, the journey is unfolding, and you are moving ever deeper into the quiet truth of yourself. As the lingering resonance of part 23 continues to drift through you like the last breeze sliding across the still surface of a night-silent lake, as the story of scarcity and the fear of loss remains delicately suspended within the softer corners of your thoughts, like a breath that has not yet dissolved, a new question begins to bloom quietly from within that very stillness. What happens when what guides human behavior is neither abundance nor deprivation, but belief itself? And so, like a stream of thought that refuses to break, part 24 emerges, gentle, slow, yet deep as a shadow, sliding across the ancient stone floor of the inner world, leading us into the realm of confirmation bias, where the mind does not seek truth, but comfort. Humans like to imagine themselves as rational beings, yet in reality, we are rational only within the boundaries permitted by our emotions and convictions. The mind gravitates toward information that stabilizes it, soothes it, and aligns with what it already wants to believe. In Thinking, Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman writes, "We can be blind to the obvious, and we are also blind to our blindness. A line that sounds simple, yet hides one of the great secrets of human cognition. Not only are we blind to truth, we are blind to the fact that we are blind, and this unfolds every day, quietly and naturally, like breathing. When you believe someone no longer loves you, the mind immediately gathers evidence to reinforce that belief. A delayed text, a shorter sentence, a distracted sigh. But if you believe that person loves you deeply, you'll see those same actions, yet with meaning entirely transformed. The world hasn't changed. You have. In The Gay Science, Nietzsche writes, "Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies." Beliefs are more dangerous than lies because you can eventually detect a lie, but you rarely question your own convictions. And this is why confirmation bias becomes a distorted mirror without ever revealing the distortion. In relationships, it makes us perceive what we fear most, even if it isn't there. In society, it divides us. In politics, it transforms misinformation into truth. In psychology, it traps us within outdated versions of ourselves. When you believe you are unworthy, your mind filters every experience to confirm that belief. When you believe you are destined to fail, you see only failure. When you believe the world is dark, you overlook every glimmer of light. But here lies the beauty. If you shift the core belief, confirmation bias begins to serve you instead of sabotaging you. The mind does not know whether what it maintains is right or wrong. It only knows how to maintain what is familiar. If you believe you have value, you will notice signs of it. If you believe you can change, you will see possibilities. If you believe life still carries light, you will start recognizing the tiniest sparks in places you once thought were only shadows. Dostoevsky once wrote in Notes from Underground, "Man only likes to count his troubles. He does not calculate his happiness. We count pain more easily than joy because the mind has grown accustomed to doing so. But now, here you are, in the quiet of the night, listening to the slow rhythm of this unfolding story, which means you are already stepping gently outside your old lens, even if only for a moment. In this stillness, you see more clearly that everything you perceive passes through a layer of invisible glass. Glass shaped by your beliefs, your memories, your fears, and your history. And as part 24 softly closes, you may feel a subtle loosening inside you, as though you've set down a stone you never realized you had been carrying. From that lightness, a new question rises, dim but persistent, like a distant call drifting through fog. If the mind can be distorted so easily by what it believes, what happens when the very first piece of information, random, irrelevant, or accidental, becomes the anchor that shapes every judgment that follows? That question will carry you deeper still into part 25, where we step into anchoring bias, the invisible anchor the mind clings to long after the waters of life have moved on. As the final echoes of part 24 continue to hum softly within you like a faint wave dissolving into the night, and as your reflections on confirmation bias, on how the mind does not seek truth but seeks whatever makes it feel right, still linger like a quiet warmth beneath your ribs. A deeper layer of perception begins to shift in the silence. This layer does not arise from old beliefs, nor from the fear of loss, nor from emotional dependency, but from the very first moment you come into contact with information. And so, in the seamless flow of this nighttime journey, part 25 emerges, slow, gentle, yet sharp as the thin edge of intuition, leading us into anchoring bias, the cognitive anchor that shapes everything you perceive afterward. Anchoring bias tells us that the very first piece of information we receive becomes so heavy, so magnetic, that all judgments afterward orbit around it, even if that information is random, misleading, or entirely irrelevant. It is like dropping an anchor into the ocean of your mind. Once it hits the floor, the ship of your thoughts, no matter how the tides shift, will always circle around that single point. And this makes the mind far easier to influence than we would ever want to believe. Imagine someone asks you, "Is this river deeper or shallower than 20 meters?" Even if you have never seen the river, your mind immediately hooks on to the number 20. A meaningless reference becomes the center of your estimation. And whether you say 10 or 30 or 50, you're still rotating around that arbitrary anchor. Daniel Kahneman writes in Thinking Fast and Slow, "People make estimates by starting from an initial value that is adjusted to yield the final answer. The initial value, or starting point, can be generated by the formulation of the problem, or it can be the result of a partial computation. The starting point, no matter how accidental, pulls the entire line of reasoning toward itself. And this does not only happen in statistics or economics. It happens in love, in grief, in how you see others, and perhaps most deeply, in how you see yourself. You meet someone once and they seem distant. Your mind anchors that as their true nature, even if they later reveal tenderness and warmth. You hear a rumor that someone cannot be trusted, and even without evidence, your perception sharpens itself around suspicion. More painfully, someone long ago told you, "You're not good enough, or you will never succeed, or you don't deserve love." And even though you have grown, survived, changed, and healed, that anchor remains deep beneath the surface, holding you back every time you try to rise. Nietzsche once wrote, "No one can build you the bridge on which you, and only you, must cross the river of life." But what he didn't say, the part psychology reveals, is that before crossing that bridge, you must first lift the anchor. Anchoring bias also explains why your earliest experiences shape everything that comes after. Someone once loved you intensely, and now gentle love feels like indifference. Someone once mistreated you, and now kindness feels suspicious. Someone once abandoned you, and now anyone who stays seems like a rare exception. The first anchor determines the map, and the quiet tragedy is that sometimes the anchor was dropped not by others, but by you. A younger version of yourself once whispered, "I'm not worthy, I always get left behind, I'm broken, and even though life has moved, even though you have changed, you continue to orbit around an identity that no longer belongs to you." Dostoevsky wrote in Crime and Punishment, "To go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's," a sentence soaked in truth and sorrow, because most anchors in our lives were not chosen freely. They were placed in us, but we carry them as if they were our own. In economics, anchoring distorts value. In love, it distorts perception. In identity, it traps you inside old versions of yourself. And yet here, in the soft quiet of this night, as your breath slows and your mind listens gently, something luminous becomes clear. Anchoring bias is not only a trap, it is also an invitation. It reminds you that you can choose a new anchor. You can anchor yourself in the present, in who you are becoming rather than who you once were. You can anchor yourself in light instead of fear. You can anchor yourself in the truth that you are healing, unfolding, changing. And when a new anchor touches the ground, your life, your understanding, your entire sense of self will begin to turn around a different center. As part 25 closes, you may feel a subtle release, as if an invisible weight you have carried for years has loosened just a little. And from that release, a new question rises softly. If the mind can be shaped by the first piece of information it hears, then what happens when silence, not words, becomes the force guiding perception? That question will carry you into part 26, where we explore the power of silence, the oldest and deepest form of communication. But for now, rest in this quiet. The anchor is lifting, and gently, you're stepping into a new space within yourself. As the lingering resonance of part 25 continues to float gently through your mind like a thin mist resting over the quiet surface of consciousness, and as the image of that invisible anchor, the one that held your thoughts captive to an arbitrary starting point, still leaves a soft and contemplative weight within you. It is in this hazy silence that another depth of the mind begins to open. A depth where it is not information, nor words, nor logic that shapes perception, but the empty space between sounds. Through that smooth transition, part 26 slowly unfolds, light as an exhale at the end of the day, yet deep as the dense midnight outside your window, guiding you toward one of the most subtle paradoxes in human communication. The power of silence. Power pause, the art of asking a question and then falling silent, allowing the other person to reveal themselves, to expose what they unconsciously try to hide, and to face their own truths reflected back at them through the calmness of the quiet. Because sometimes what is not said speaks the loudest. Humans often believe that communication is about words, about how we arrange sentences, about the speed of our responses, about the force of our reasoning. But psychology shows us that the moment of silence after a question holds more power than any technique of persuasion. When you ask and then fall still, no rescuing the awkwardness, no filling the void, no rushing to soften the air. The other person's mind slips into a subtle tension, a small inward pull that nudges them to search within, to elaborate more than intended, to unveil truths they did not plan to reveal. Silence becomes a mirror, not distorted, not coercive, but so still and deep that the person gazing into it must confront themselves. Rainer Maria Rilke wrote in Letters to a Young Poet, "Everything is gestation and then bringing forth. Silence is that gestation, the fertile pause where nothing is forced, and therefore everything real has a chance to surface. Silence does not apply pressure. Silence does not judge. Silence does not argue. Yet humans fear emptiness so much that they hurry to fill it with speech. And for that reason, the one who knows how to use silence holds the power." The paradox of the power pause is this. The more someone wants to hide something, the more likely they are to reveal it in silence. When they fear judgment, they ramble. When they are insecure, they over-explain. When they lie, they fill the air with unnecessary details. When they feel guilt, they rush to apologize. When they love, they fall quiet because the silence amplifies the heartbeat they're trying to conceal, and their eyes, breath, and trembling hands betray them. Silence undresses the soul in ways words never can. In Eastern philosophy, Lao Tzu wrote, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." Not because the one who knows is afraid to speak, but because they understand that truth lives in the spaces between words, not in the noise of them. Silence is the language of those who feel deeply enough to recognize what lies beyond language. Power pause is used by negotiators, therapists, investigators, leaders, and lovers. A therapist asks, "How did that really make you feel?" and then waits, and in that wait, the heart begins to open. A negotiator asks, "Is that truly what you want?" and then stays still, letting the other person re-examine their motives. A lover asks, "Are you sure you're okay?" and the quiet that follows becomes a soft pull toward authenticity. Silence does not force confession. Silence makes it unbearable not to confess. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And when silence stretches long enough, the true colors of the soul begin to bleed through. In part 25, we learned how the mind anchors itself to the first information it hears. But here, in part 26, you discover something deeper. The mind does not always anchor to data. Sometimes it anchors to silence. A well-placed question paired with a well-held quiet can anchor someone's thoughts directly into the center of their inner truth. Yet silence is not only a tool for revealing, it is also a tool for healing. When you sit beside someone without judgment, without rushing to speak, simply present, your stillness becomes a sanctuary. Healing does not come from advice. Healing comes from space. And silence is the purest space of all. But like any powerful force, silence can be misused. Manipulators weaponize the power pause. They ask, then stay silent, not to understand, but to pressure. Their silence is not calm but suffocating, not spacious but controlling. And here, silence splits. One form belongs to wisdom, the other to domination. When you learn this distinction, you no longer fear silence. You recognize that silence can be a cradle or a blade, and you choose to use it as light, not as shadow. Sitting here now, in the softness of night, letting these words settle into you like falling stardust, you may feel silence shift from something empty into something sacred, a place where your own reflection becomes clearer than ever. And as part 26 gently closes like a slow, relieved breath after hours of holding everything inside, you feel that your mind has stepped into a private stillness that opens more doors than it closes. From within that stillness, the next question begins to rise. If silence can make people reveal their truths, what happens when repetition, regardless of accuracy, makes people believe something is true simply because they've heard it many times? That question leads you to part 27, the illusory truth effect, where truth becomes not a matter of reality, but of repetition. But for now, breathe deeply. The night is still long, and you are still descending into yourself, slowly, gently, fully. As the lingering echoes of part 26 continue drifting quietly within you like the soft afterglow of a silence that has only just closed, as the reflections on the power of stillness, on how a single power pause can pull a person inward, revealing truths untouched by words, still hum through your chest like the final exhale after a long day. It is from within that very stillness that a slow, subtle shift begins. A shift light as leaves, rustling outside the window, guiding you from the silence of communication into another gentle paradox of human nature, one that is tender, unassuming, but profoundly deep. The Benjamin Franklin effect, the strange truth that when someone does a favor for you, they end up liking you more, not the other way around. A paradox that reveals how the human psyche often moves opposite to intuition, and through that reversal, exposes something genuine about kindness. And so, part 27 opens, seamlessly flowing from part 26 like a quiet stream of thought, unbroken and unforced, as though the silence just before it created exactly the right amount of space for a new clarity to emerge. The Benjamin Franklin effect begins with Franklin himself, one of the most influential thinkers and statesmen in American history. In the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, he recalls that there was a man who disliked him, someone who avoided him at every opportunity. Franklin did not win this man over with flattery or kindness directed at him. Instead, he did the opposite. He asked the man for a small favor. And something unexpected happened. The man not only helped him, but afterward became friendlier and more warm-hearted toward him. Franklin wrote, He that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another. Kindness, when reversed, when you receive it rather than give it, forces the helper to adjust how they see themselves. If I helped this person, I must like them. The mind cannot tolerate holding contradictory beliefs, and to ease that subtle psychological discomfort, it rewrites the narrative. I helped because I care. From that tiny crack in their judgment, genuine goodwill begins to grow. What makes this effect remarkable is that it works more powerfully than helping someone does. When you help another, the mind tells a familiar story. I'm kind because I'm a good person, but when someone helps you, the story becomes, I'm kind because you are worth being kind to. A small shift in direction, an enormous shift in meaning. If the power pause is the art of stillness, the Benjamin Franklin effect is the art of emotional redirection through action. And as you follow the thread deeper, you realize that this effect is not limited to social interactions. It exists in every emotional bond, love, friendship, family, work, even the quiet relationship you hold with yourself. Imagine someone who once held little affection for you. If you tried to win their approval by excessive kindness, they might simply take it for granted. But if you gently ask them for a small favor, a book recommendation, a piece of advice, a document, a brief moment of help, they open a small door inside themselves. Because helping you allows them to feel valued, needed, meaningful, connected. They didn't help you because they adored you. They helped you, and then their mind began to believe that they do. The same phenomenon unfolds in love. We often think we love those who help us, but more often we love those we help. Caring for someone binds us to them because the act of giving makes our heart open. This is why the more parents care for their children, the deeper their love grows. The more we show up for someone, the more we feel connected. Kindness creates a cycle of affection, not through receiving, but through giving. Look deeper, and you'll see that this effect illuminates a beautiful truth. Kindness, once offered, naturally finds its way back. Not through gratitude, not through repayment, but through the quiet expansion of the heart that gives. The giver feels more human, more grounded, more connected, and in that connection, love grows. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "What we do now echoes in eternity. Kindness reverberates beyond intention." Franklin observed this through psychology. Aurelius saw it through the spirit. But both pointed to the same truth. Every act of kindness deepens connection, and connection is the root of all positive emotion. Yet, like every psychological mechanism, the Benjamin Franklin effect also has a shadow side. It can be used by manipulators who ask for small favors to create artificial closeness, to make you believe they value you, to slowly pull you into obligation, responsibility, or emotional dependence. This is why understanding the effect matters. Not only to use it ethically, but to recognize when someone is twisting it for their own gain. But in the quiet of this night, as you let these words settle in your mind like drops of water falling into a still lake, you can feel that the most beautiful part of this effect has nothing to do with manipulation. It lies in genuine connection, in people helping one another not from duty, but from openness, in small acts of care, planting seeds of profound trust, in simple gestures weaving unbreakable threads between souls, in the realization that healing sometimes begins with one small thing you do for someone, or one small thing they do for you. As part 27 closes, your heart may feel slightly softer, like something within you has gently unclenched. You may feel lighter, calmer, as though you've glimpsed an intimate truth about human nature, that we all long to see ourselves as good, And from that longing, we create kindness. And from that kindness, we create connection. And in that softness, another question begins to form, quiet, patient, like a breath released in the dark. If humans grow attached to those they help, what happens when humans become consumed by everything left undone, unfinished tasks, unresolved emotions, incomplete stories? That question will lead you into part 28, where we step inside the Zeigarnik effect, the psychological pull that keeps the mind returning to what is incomplete. As the soft echoes of part 27 continue drifting within you like a thin mist that has not yet lifted after a quiet night rain. As the reflections on the Benjamin Franklin effect, the gentle realization that humans often like someone more simply because they have once helped them, still hum faintly inside your chest like a distant string trembling in the dark. It is within this softened stillness that another door begins to open, leading you into a wider, older, more mysterious realm of thought. A realm that has lived in philosophy for more than 2,000 years. The realm of the cave, where human beings exist among shadows, yet believe those shadows to be truth. And so, in a seamless stream of reflection, part 28 unfolds, carrying you toward Plato's cave, the timeless allegory of perception, where we discover that what we call reality may simply be light cast on a wall. In the Republic, Plato tells of people chained inside a cave from birth, unable to turn their heads, unable to see the world outside, able only to look forward at shadows cast by a fire behind them. Those shadows, flickering silhouettes of real objects, become their entire world. To them, shadow is truth, the echo is real sound, the dim glow on stone is the sun. They do not know the world outside, the vivid sky, the real light, the living colors. To them, Plato writes, the truth would be literally nothing but the shadows of the images. And that is the condition of human consciousness. We accept shadows as truth because they are familiar. Yet even more striking is this. If one prisoner breaks free, steps into daylight, sees the real world, then returns to the cave to tell the others, they will not believe him. They will laugh, call him delusional, perhaps even fear him, because the light hurts. The truth is too bright. The shadow, though false, is safe. But Plato's story is not merely myth. It is a map of the mind. Each of us carries a cave within us, a structure of beliefs, memories, assumptions, fears, and interpretations. And the shadows cast within that cave become the truths we cling to. You have seen someone through a single comment and held that shadow for years. You have believed a judgment about yourself. I am not enough. I am unlovable. I will fail. And lived under that shadow like a ceiling. You have carried the shadow of an old wound into every new love. You have filtered life through fear, and fear has painted every surface to match itself. These are not truths. They are shadows, the shadows of the past falling across the present, the shadows of memory obscuring possibility, the shadows of fear distorting the light. We do not live in the world itself. We live in our interpretation of the world. Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, there are no facts, only interpretations. The cave is simply the oldest mirror of this truth. But can we ever step out completely? Or do we simply trade one cave for a slightly larger one? In this quiet night, as these words descend softly into your awareness, perhaps you sense that escaping the cave is not a dramatic leap into blinding sunlight, not the destruction of every belief, but the gentle recognition that you are in a cave, and that there is more beyond what you see. Awareness is already a kind of freedom. In the Republic, Plato writes of the freed prisoner. he will require to grow accustomed to the sight of the upper world. We too must grow accustomed to truth. Light must be approached slowly, like dawn creeping into darkness, soft but unstoppable. In the silence surrounding you now, you may feel that Plato's cave is not a story about distant philosophers. It is a story about your own inner journey, the slow movement from shadow to awareness, from assumption to curiosity, from fear to freedom. And as part 28 closes, something quiet unfolds inside you. The understanding that one does not need to stand fully outside the cave to be awake. One only needs to know that the cave exists. And from that gentle recognition, a new question begins to rise, soft as the exhale following meditation. If we see the world through the cave of perception, what happens when language itself contradicts the beliefs we hold within? This question leads you into part 29, Moore's paradox, where a person may speak a truth they cannot believe, and as the night deepens around you, you step quietly into another chamber of thought. As the final echoes of part 28 drift softly through your mind, like the last shimmering dust left behind as the prisoner steps out of Plato's cave, as the idea of shadow and truth, the realization that we often see the world only through the narrow lens of our own interpretations, still lingers around your awareness like a thin veil of mist not yet dissolved. It is within that quiet that another paradox begins to emerge. A paradox not born of darkness or of light, but of the very structure of human consciousness itself. A paradox that reveals how, in certain fragile moments of life, a person can speak a sentence that is logically correct yet psychologically impossible to believe. A sentence true in words but untrue in the heart, spoken by the self yet rejected by that same self. And so, flowing seamlessly from the previous chapter, part 29 opens and leads you toward Moore's paradox. The paradox identified by G.E. Moore in his famous example. It is raining, but I don't believe it's raining. A sentence that is not logically false, yet cannot exist within human experience. Moore's paradox shows us something profoundly human. We can know a truth through senses, reason, or evidence, yet deep within, we may still not believe it. The mind says yes, while the heart whispers no, and from that subtle fracture arises the quiet dissonance almost everyone carries inside. In life, this paradox appears far more often than we admit. You may have said, "I know I will get through this, but I don't believe it," or "I know they love me, but I don't believe it." Or silently, "I know I'm good enough, but I don't believe that." This is Moore's paradox, the divided self, where knowledge and belief do not run parallel, but drift like two misaligned streams that never fully meet. In philosophical investigations, Wittgenstein pointed to this impossibility when he wrote, "One cannot say, 'I believe it is so, but it isn't so.' Language allows us to describe reality, but belief resides deeper, immune to command. Thus, Moore's paradox becomes a mirror showing our inner incompleteness. We may see truth with our eyes, yet fail to accept it with our hearts. Psychology describes this as emotional dissonance, when external truth collides with internal fear, and fear wins. That is why we cling to relationships long after hope is gone. Why we hesitate even when safety is already ours. Why we feel unworthy of love even when the world assures us we are. For in those moments, truth cannot overcome wounds. Nietzsche wrote, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." But Moore's paradox goes deeper. Sometimes people do hear the truth, acknowledge it, even speak it aloud, and still cannot believe it. Not out of ignorance or stubbornness, But because the heart carries injuries, reason cannot instantly heal. And so, Moore's paradox becomes a gentle metaphor for the human journey. We are allowed to contradict ourselves, allowed to know without yet believing, allowed to hear truth while needing time to accept it, allowed to let the heart catch up to the mind in its own rhythm. Much like Plato's freed prisoner stepping into the blinding sunlight, he cannot immediately believe in the world he sees. He must grow accustomed to it. Healing works in the same way. In the quiet of this night, as you let these words settle like droplets falling into a deep well, you may sense that Moore's paradox is not a logical puzzle at all. It is the story of becoming whole, the story of knowing you are enough while your heart is still learning, the story of knowing you should let go while your hands still tremble, the story of knowing you deserve love while your heart still flinches at tenderness. And all of that is profoundly human. As part 29 closes softly within you, a new question begins to form, gentle as a breath, yet powerful enough to open the final chamber of this journey. If humans can contradict themselves to the point of speaking a truth they cannot believe, what happens when the law itself, the realm we assume to be the most logical and structured, falls into contradiction so deep it cannot determine justice? That question, like a faint glimmer guiding you through darkness, leads you into part 30, the paradox of the court, where justice is no straight line, but a self-folding loop of logic and uncertainty. And before you step into that final chapter, take a slow breath, letting your heart catch up to what you now understand. That sometimes simply noticing your inner contradictions is already one step out of your own cave, as the echoes of part 29 continue drifting through you like a faint ring of light suspended in the quiet of your mind. As Moore's paradox lingers with its realization that a human being can speak a truth, yet fail to believe it. Reason flowing one way, emotion flowing another, like two parallel rivers that never meet. Then, from that very tension, another door opens. A door leading you from the contradictions within the self to the contradictions within the larger structures we trust, the law itself. If Moore's paradox reveals the limits of individual belief, then what comes next reveals something deeper still, that even the systems built to separate right from wrong, firm and rational as they appear, can collapse into loops of contradiction where logic finds no endpoint. And so, the seamless current of thought carries you into part 30, the paradox of the court, one of the most enduring legal paradoxes in the history of philosophy, where strict logic leads not to clarity but to stalemate, and where justice, imagined as something solid, becomes a circle with no exit. The paradox tells the story of Protagoras, the ancient Greek sophist, who agreed to teach his student Euthyphus under one condition. Euthyphus would pay his tuition only after he won his first court case. After completing his studies, Euthyphus chose not to try any cases at all. Frustrated, Protagoras took him to court to demand the payment. And here the loop begins to tighten. Protagoras argued that if he won the case, the court would order Euthyphus to pay. Therefore, he must pay. But if Euthyphus won the case, then according to their original agreement, he would still have to pay, because winning the case would mean his first legal victory. Euthyphus responded with an opposite loop. If he won, the court would declare he owed nothing. And if Protagoras won, then he still had not yet won any case, meaning he owed nothing under the agreement. Each argument was perfectly logical, each conclusion true within its own frame, and the court, built to decide truth, stood before a loop with no solution, no ruling possible, no way out, a perfect paradox. This paradox is not merely a story about law. It is a story about the limits of reason, about how even the firmest structures, logic, legal codes, rational judgment, have places where they break into contradiction. Wittgenstein once wrote in Tractatus Logico-Philosophics: "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world, and in the paradox of the court, we see this laid bare. The limits of legal language become the limits of judgment itself. Some disputes have no answer. Some conflicts have no clean division of right and wrong. Some reasoning is flawless, yet leads to no justice at all. This paradox also invites reflection on the fragility of what we call certainty. Humans trust the law to find truth, but the paradox of the court shows that some truths cannot be reached through rulings because the story itself is anchored in contradiction. It is like trying to decide which end of a circle is first. The problem is not illogical. It is simply structured in a way that logic cannot resolve. And if you look deeper, you will see that this paradox lives not only in courtroom walls, it lives in daily human life. The arguments with no end, where each person is right inside their own logic. The relationships where both believe they are the one who was hurt. The choices you both want and fear. The promises both sides keep in their own way, yet still feel betrayed. All of these are living versions of the paradox of the court. Each person holds a fragment of truth, yet no one can hold the whole. Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "Many are stubborn in pursuit of the path they have chosen, few in pursuit of the goal. We cling to our reasoning more than we seek truth, and because of that, contradictions persist. Loops tighten. Justice becomes a feeling, not a verdict. The paradox of the court becomes the paradox of life. We must learn that not every conflict has a resolution, not every story has a conclusion, not every question has an answer. Yet in the gentle quiet of this night, as you listen with slow, steady breaths, you may sense something softer beneath this contradiction, something the paradox hints at but never says aloud. What matters is not the verdict, but the understanding that some things cannot be judged, and that recognition itself is healing. For often, the mind suffers not because an answer is missing, but because it insists on finding an answer in a place where none can exist. The paradox of the court gives you permission to exhale, permission to accept that some things will remain unresolved. Some misunderstandings cannot be fixed. Some loops cannot be broken, only released. Some stories do not need an ending. In its philosophical depth, this paradox offers an even more tender teaching. Truth sometimes lives not in resolution, but in acknowledging your own limits. The beauty of philosophy is not in having answers, but in learning to live with questions. Kierkegaard once wrote, "Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced." And the paradox of the court is a soft reminder that life does not demand you to untangle every contradiction, only to move through them with awareness. And now, as part 30, the final part of this journey, comes to a close like the last breath before sinking into deep sleep, you may feel that throughout these 30 chapters, you have traveled not only through paradoxes, cognitive traps, and philosophical riddles, but also through a quiet journey into yourself. A journey of awareness, of healing, of light threading its way through the shadows, of understanding that not everything must be resolved. Some things only need to be felt. And in this moment, as the night rests around you like still water, as your mind softens and sinks into the silence, perhaps you realize something gentle and profound. That true light is not what helps you see the world outside, but what helps you see yourself within. 3 hours of psychological tricks, so twisted they'll change how you think. Fall asleep to